My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
It is Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. It's 9:22 a.m. And the following is documentation that is directly relevant to the mental illness, the demented mind state, speaking to malicious psychopaths who are sick mentally. In fact, with regard to their pattern of conduct of targeting me as an entity that is also engaged in what are tactics of obstruction of justice, and it's relevant to what I'm doing on my communication device. This is exactly what I'm about to narrate right now. Is exactly what the demons are doing on an ongoing basis based on whatever it is that they're triggered by. For example, what I'm looking at on the internet, what I'm documenting, which is what I'm doing now, a form of documentation publishing. For example, a couple weeks ago when I am publishing the heavy gang stalking documented by the Ontario Police Department, as I am the following morning following up on additional details, this is when the same demon, the same psychopath, the same incestuous sex offender who was inside of the same apartment where the fake sun rises and sets, where the same engineer light is on her living room wall, and I'm not laughing because it's funny, I'm laughing because this is very pathetic how the psychopaths have surrounded themselves with evidence that they cannot address, and where they will want to and will not be able to address the evidence proving that they are sick and that they're also criminals, and that they also were aware of the entire time that this time of being prosecuted and publicly exposed, for example, in court, it's coming. But nonetheless, this is exactly what the entity did with regard to impossible light activity while I was publishing, for example, the gang stalking by the Ontario Police Department. And if you'll recall, this is when the same demon, Tracy Banks, who was gang stalking right now inside of the unit at 9:23 a.m. You already know the fake sun is here. I captured video at 9:01 a.m. just a couple days ago as the latest with regard to the idle presence of the fake sun, which you also know is still here over her apartment in alignment to me in conformity to the pattern of conduct where the entity is both stalking with the fake sun and stalking and harassing with impossible light activity that is not the product of sunlight, and it occurs and arrives, if you will, becomes dynamic, if you will, with regard to whatever it is that I am doing, that demon-possessed people who are stalking and keeping me under surveillance, used to engage in what is right now while the demons are fearful, and I'm publishing evidence about the Ontario International Airport who was still gang stalking right now while impossible light activity sweeps across this defendant's ceiling in her living room. This is what, again, when I'm publishing the gang stalking by the Ontario Police a couple weeks ago, this same impossible light activity is what was appearing inside of Tracy Banks' apartment in her living room, like you've seen across her kitchen cabinets. Like I documented RGS gang stalking the other morning during the 11 a.m. hour when they're pacing all about on the property and the fake sun is here. And the demons are such as the demon in unit number 43, license 7YEH777, is engaging in surveillance. They're engaging in the same pattern of conduct, not those specific actors. The entity is engaged in the same pattern of conduct. There are demons pacing around in the parking lot. The demons are pacing around the venue. The fake sun is directly over the apartment. The demon that resides in this unit is inside of the apartment while the supernatural is underway with regard to engineered light, which is swiping across this demon's ceiling, which is speaking to what the government is doing with this defendant and all of the defendants that are going to prison in units 33 through 64, while I am in the midst of publishing documentation that they are aware of because they're engaged in federal stalking. This is criminal surveillance on the venue of the internet, while cowards who are, again, sexual predators, who are mentally ill psychopaths, who are surrounded with evidence that they are both triggered by and hostile to, while it is more incriminating to them to engage in more of that pattern of conduct, which is also consistent as I engage in documentation efforts, and the entity repeats the same exact pattern of conduct. But nonetheless, that's what I want to document. 9:26 a.m. is the current time, and as I am publishing evidence that I documented on October 5th, 2021 at 7:06 p.m., where the Ontario International Airport is engaging in what is gang stalking. That is hovering over G Street, where there is no Terminal 2 or Terminal 4, much like when you see them hovering in plain view, just feet ahead over Woodside Senior Apartments, where they are gang stalking under the fake sun, day and night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, where there is not only no terminal, where they are outside of what is the zone. They are clearly hovering and under circumstances where you're not taking off from the airport to be hovering over the apartment complex. And you're also doing it amongst what is the engineered light in conformity to the pattern of conduct of stalking. And so the Ontario International Airport is stalking on this day in 2021 in commercial planes. While you're looking at the spectacular light activity, while you're looking at this same psychopath inside of this unit, Tracy Banks, gang stalking in this video evidence with the same apartment complex, Woodside Senior Apartments. Okay, this is where the entity is engaging in the tactic of psychological torture, which AVANATH Capital Management, gang stalking in 2021 and gang stalking still in 2025, shall be civilly and criminally liable for it, as they are gang stalking an occupant. Okay, that's an unprecedented violation of the Violence Against Women Act, by the way, which they will be prosecuted for as well. The entity is doing so with an intent to obstruct justice, and this is while they're engaged in federal stalking. If you were not engaged in what is monitoring what I'm doing online, you would be prosecuted for gang stalking. Nonetheless, physically, they're also engaged in surveillance, however, on the venue of the internet and via devices. And this is how you have the simultaneity of the elements of monitoring with the use of my devices. And this is going to be, again, a comprehensive prosecution for that unlawful system of surveillance, which is also psychologically harmful. And the psychopath whose mental illness is at the forefront of her prosecution and every other defendant's prosecution by virtue of that light activity. And the mentally ill who are flying commercial planes at the Ontario International Airport, and the mentally ill who are in positions of authority, such as Paul Leon, the city of Ontario, engaged in years of gang stalking, which is criminal surveillance of a satanic nature, which is directly speaking to what is their demented mindset, which is a threat to the public. As you can see, it's what I represent while I'm being targeted by the mentally ill, corrupt government in Ontario, gang stalking by commercial planes on October 5th, 2021 in the video documented at 7:06 p.m., which I will be publishing. And you can look at that yourself when you're looking at ongoing confirmation about what I'm still documenting to date and what I was stating years before. Okay, the same exact pattern of conduct, which is speaking to impunity by a corrupt government, who is speaking to the corrupt body, government body that's engaging in this criminal system with the population. And that includes the defendant in whose apartment the light activity is occurring, which is no figment of anyone's imagination, certainly not mine, when there is hard evidence speaking to thousands of videos of that same exact pattern of conduct, which is referred to as stalking with light. Mentally ill people who are stalking one person as a population engage in the pattern of stalking you amongst that light, and that's what the Woodside Senior Apartments is going to be prosecuted for. They're all stalking by residents, and Linda Reyes and every other employee is stalking by place of employment and or residence. And they're going to prison and mental asylums in units 33 through 64, and the entire venue is going to be prosecuted for psychological torture and seeking to obstruct justice by harassing and terrorizing me with the impossible light as a desperate measure, by the way. The demons, at least their pattern of conduct, suggests that they would rather more evidence in the present be served for their federal imprisonment as opposed to publishing evidence that is already gathered. It is equally going to result in federal prison and mental asylums, damages, and prosecution of corrupt third parties like AVANATH. But this is what the demons, who are, again, mentally ill, more obsessed with me, psychopathic, their hostility toward their being exposed as demons, and corrupt, like the government in Ontario, which is the state of California, by the way. But nonetheless, this is what the entity focuses on, which is me. while I am exposing them. The entity in units 33 through 64 are stalking me and engaged in federal stalking, which you already know. It is axiomatic when the fake sun is over them, when the engineer light surrounds me, which is, again, where they are as well around me. You are pointing directly to yourself when you're gang stalking, as you are able to now understand and recognize how that system operates. Okay, Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ740. This is a mentally ill psychopath who is gang stalking inside of her apartment right now while that light activity is happening inside of her apartment, which you are inextricably linked to. You also have the impossible light activity that's framing her front door like it was during the 7 a.m. hour, by the way, before the fake sun was risen over where it is that she resides, which is the same place where it sets as well. This is, in other words, being surrounded with the evidence. It is currently 9:31 a.m. This is documentation of the P.O.C. while I'm publishing evidence onto the venue of the internet, which the entity has been keeping under surveillance all night long. The entity uses these light tactics during the day, which they could do it at nighttime because it has nothing to do with the fake sun at all. So it's as ridiculous and clearly incriminating. It is direct evidence, not circumstantial, with regard to the prosecution amongst the system of terrorism for federal group stalking, monitoring, and psychological torture. So the entity does it nonetheless during the day while I am documenting what is the ornament in the immediate sky space, identifying the population of demons that speaking both to their criminal activity and their mental illness, which is literally diagnosed based on their criminal pattern of conduct. All right, they have placed themselves thereby in mental asylums and federal prison. It's 9:32 a.m. This is P.O.C. on, by the way, Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. The psychopath Tracy Banks is gang stalking in her apartment, in her bedroom, while the light activity is underway, which is what she's doing on every other day. I'm narrating because she is going to a mental asylum and she's not getting out, and her neighbors are going to federal prison and mental asylums and are all being removed from the Woodside senior apartments altogether. This is POC. A repeat of the same impossible light activities swiping across Tracy Banks' living room. This is in fact a demon. This is the same promiscuous witch that's had sex with people in my social circle because she wants to be me and has been gang stalking me for years. And it's incriminating the state of California that has targeted me with regard to psychological torture, gang stalking, and concert with seeking to criminally defame. Every gang stalking judge, every gang stalking co-defendant like Eric Spencer, they're going to prison. But I want to document this video, 9:34 a.m., repeat with the impossible light activity. It's happening inside of the defendant's apartment. And I'm going to also include the documentation of the video that the demons are triggered by, documenting the city of Ontario that is targeting me inside of Tracy Banks' apartment in Ontario, California. All right, the following is documented on October 5th, 2021 at 7:06 p.m. and 41 seconds. So the timestamp would read 2021-10:05 at 19:06:41. That's 7:06 p.m. and 41 seconds. It's going to be published in the playlist for October 5th, 2021. Tracy Banks is gang stalking in the video with the city of Ontario. It's Ontario International Airport. And I want to be clear, that same exact entity is gang stalking me inside of her apartment today on March 23rd, 2025, while I am publishing the evidence, which is inspiring their criminal conduct regarding psychological torture, which again, the entity is willing to be subject to criminal damages for their criminal conduct. AVANATH, they're willing to go to federal prison. AVANATH employees and the residents in the surrounding units, they're willing to go to mental asylums. The demons in Unit 55, this demon Tracy Banks, the demons in Unit 41, the RGS gang stalking, they're subject to mental asylums. They're all speaking to the same penalties that are continuously enhanced. The entity, you're talking about disbanding of the police, the removal of the airport, the Ontario Fire, which you've already seen, gang stalking, and kidnappers being removed. This is the conduct and speaking to the mental illness of an entity that is now targeting, and the direct inspiration is because I'm publishing evidence about them. Okay, the entity is doing so regarding this video documentation, which I'm going to include on the podcast. All right, let me show you. This is directed light. This is my shadow upright. The state, you see flying right here, it was hovering over the top of this building right here, flying right on top of it, while they're maintaining presence in the path with their headlights. 3 MWX 752. That's demonic, and that's amplification, and that's stalking by the state as I'm exiting the store at Giant Variety Store, but they're all monitoring together. But the state was flying so low over this building right here and elevates right here above and amplifies audible activity. Okay? P.O.C. I want you to look at what is directed light. You see that shadow? That's a shadow of a gate. That's speaking to the trajectory of light. That's a gate on the side of the building. That's directed light that I'm surrounded by. That's P.O.C. All right, so first of all, this is happening at that's the end of the video. It's occurring at 222 West G Street in Ontario, California, the same plaza that's engaged in gang stalking on a ceaseless basis. In the document entitled W.S.C. The People, this plaza that is on the side where the fake sun is rising in the morning, it is also speaking to, which would be the east side of Tracy Banks' apartment where the sun rises and sets. This plaza is on the east side of Woodside Senior Apartments, and Woodside Senior Apartments is covered in engineered light, which is speaking to criminal engagement in the pattern of conduct that the city of Ontario that is hovering, okay? Hovering, meaning openly and obviously targeting, not taking off, and engaged in what is taking off from any Terminal 2 or Terminal 4, where they are hovering over G Street, and you can hear the planes and the entity that are the people of the state who are demons, as they are not coincidentally or ignorantly or accidentally acting at the same time with the demons that are flying commercial planes, and what is engineered light, the supernatural character of the environment and the complementary behavior of the demons in that demonic environment. This is the entity gang stalking together. All right, and Woodside Senior Apartments is fully engaged in that. And the entity is gang stalking while I am at 222 West G Street, the entire shopping plaza that's gang stalking right now. Okay, as the city of Ontario is gang stalking, which you know that the whole city is, you know that the state is based on the supernatural environment. The state engages in the ridiculous illusion that the sun rises everywhere in the state. It's remaining directly over me, rising and setting over one apartment building at the apartment complex. Remember, it's not so high in the sky that it's over the entire apartment complex. It's over me, directly over where I'm situated at the same property where it's also setting. This is where you're looking at the same supernatural environment that's inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. And this is the video that the same entity is triggered by when they engage in psychological torture tactics that do not work on a federal prosecutor. It's serving for supporting why mentally ill and corrupt domestic terrorist leaders like Alan D. WAPNER, who also happens to be both the president of the gang stalking airport. This is somebody that is in a position of leadership over the gang stalking Omnitrans, using the roads and the highways to engage in the P.O.C. This is also evidence that is published on the internet on, first of all, the same date, October 5th, 2021. I was documenting Alan D. Wapner's Omnitrans all day long. He's going to be removed from the city council. He is a demon-possessed, a mentally ill, demon-possessed government leader. He's gang stalking while being on the city council. And this is, again, inherent to Paul Leon's incompetence. He is directly incriminated because of the nature of this pattern of conduct. It's not just speaking to, it's not like selling drugs, where even though there are times where you can make these sort of logical connections, but however, the specific pattern of conduct is so unique that it's demonic. And so you have what is a spirit that is shared amongst those that are engaging in the P.O.C., and you're not ignorantly in the demonic environment and then acting in conformity to the pattern of conduct. You are not a part of what is a pattern of conduct that must exist amongst an entity with regard to everyone's condition ignorantly. So it's you're, in other words, you are engaging in what is trafficking drugs to the community. It's not logically, nor does the crime of selling drugs in and of itself something that requires a community or something that is relevant to what everyone else is necessarily engaged in with regard to a means for an entity to target someone. It is something that is fully capable of happening and being executed with one person, and not necessarily including their neighbor or someone else, okay? There are facts and circumstances where you're investigating how many other people may be involved in that particular type of crime. This is not the case with regard to selling drugs versus gang stalking, which is occurring in an environment, and behaviors are facilitating what is a means of surveillance that's relevant to that environment and activity that's ongoing in that environment, revealing also the behavior of those, and the behavior of those where you're giving context regarding the purpose for their behavior is speaking directly to their demented mind state and the knowledge that they have while they repeat a pattern of conduct regarding the environment and their behavior. This is not the same sort of prosecution for something like selling drugs. Okay, when you're not necessarily incriminating, for example, you're even somebody that you live with because somebody that lives in your household sells drugs. Okay. But you can definitely be prosecuted if facts and circumstances suggest that you're aware and you're engaging in selling drugs with your roommate or with your, your spouse or whatever the circumstances might be. This is not the same with gang stalking. All right. The entity is gang stalking in a specific environment that remains everywhere that I go. And it's something that is supernatural with regard to the character of the environment that is necessarily requiring the ability to look at everything that's happening, cognizant of the supernatural character of the environment. Nothing, in other words, is innocent, if you will, or for that matter, with regard to understanding the elements of monitoring, separate. Okay. And then you're looking at the supernatural aspect with regard to their behavior in an environment that's already defying nature. So you're already amazed by, whoa, the sun sits there all day long. And wow, yeah, you do have a lot of people that sit with what are methods of flashing light, as you never marry yourself to the image. They do it through multiple vehicles. That's a method of light in motion. Hazard lights. Traffic signals were your turn signals, the brake foot on the brakes, which is again can be accomplished with traffic just around the vicinity of the apartment, and also just traveling through in the parking lot. For example, at Woodside, as I'm documenting at Woodside, this is how a population shares and what is the elements of monitoring and what is an environment that defies nature. They're not in sunlight during the day under the fake sun, and it's also the same exact light activity at night when the fake sun's not even there. Okay, and yet you have the same creation of what is multiple shadows in the dark. You have what is upright magnified size shadows in the dark where light fixtures and light coming from artificial light doesn't create that sort of light activity. Neither does the sun during the day. All right, and so this is the distinction between prosecuting for something like selling drugs and prosecuting for what is federal group stalking and monitoring. Nonetheless, I just wanted you to listen to the evidence that the entity is inspiring. Again, this psychopath, Tracy Banks, license 4WON432, is in relevant position, stalking in the path, a psychopath just like she is now, gang stalking in concert with the rest of the entity. She's going to the mental ward where she belongs, and she won't be getting out. Okay, but I want to include in the podcast what is the entity. The entity is gang stalking me because they're obsessed with me, because they're demon possessed, because they're targeting me in furtherance of seeking to steal from me, get away with what they have already stolen from me, while also seeking to create some sort of illusion of mental illness on behalf of a target individual who's not supposed to have the body of evidence of federal group stalking and monitoring. And I am disproving all of these false notions, which requires public corruption, by the way, to reach these grand, illogical, and unlawful and unconstitutionally vague means of distorting the character of an American citizen. You're not actually creating any illusion. It's not successfully creating any illusion. The entity is doing so through bullying and abuse of positions, and it's requiring corrupt courts and corrupt judges and attorneys. Secondly, there is no actual mental illness by a targeted individual who's being targeted by those who are actually mentally ill, as you're aware of their pattern of conduct, like stalking in planes, stalking with light, doing even more of it while they are proven to be the stalkers and the psychopaths and the demon-possessed population that they are, such as the city of Ontario. Okay, it is currently 9:45 a.m. I just wanted to make sure I include that video. This is why the entity is repeating this impossible light activity. It's pointing directly to the government that's going to be disbanded, removed from existence. The airport, national security threats as the mentally ill are an operation of a police department, of a fire department, of a corrupt mayor's office, of an airport, of a whole population of stalkers who are together targeting one person. And they have all been targeted with evidence that is insurmountable and irreconcilable also. That's the prosecution of the state of California. This is P.O.C. at 9:46 a.m. where the fake sun is present and engineered light remains inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. Okay, P.O.C. It's currently 10:54 4 a.m. So 10:53 a.m. Repeat with the stalking and what is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment as far as the prosecution of AVANATH, the company itself, and the entity that is gang stalking somebody in an apartment where they live, and a government that's stalking someone, and in concert with the people, the civilians who are stalking together. This is gang stalking, and literally Tracy Banks, who's inside of the apartment. Doing so, again, this is a psychopath, and this is also exposing what is very real, which is witchcraft, and also what is closeted mental illness. And as I prosecute and as I speak to the P.O.C, it's not closeted anymore. And it also requires, constitutionally speaking, that there are laws that need to change with regard to the many illusions that corrupt governments like the state of California rely on in order to violate American citizens constitutionally, with regard to violation of their constitutional and human rights, rather. Nonetheless, 10:53 a.m. and approximately 10 minutes earlier, 10:43 a.m., while Tracy Banks is gang stalking in the kitchen, this witch is offering to prepare food. And as I see the engineer light, I'm not eating that food. So that's what she's doing. She's gang stalking while offer, oh, do you want something to eat? And engineer light is moving across her ceiling. So I am not eating that food. It's directly pointing to malice. This is a psychopath that hates me and is gang stalking with the purpose of murdering me, by the way, and is also at the same time offering to cook food. You'll see the images that are uploaded to the Google Drive right now as of 10:55 a.m. of engineer light that's sitting on her ceiling, okay, and engaged in real-time movement. So I capture the light on the ceiling, and I capture the same light on the ceiling that's in a different position, meaning it's moving. It's like having insects that are engaged in creeping and crawling across the ceiling, but it's not, they're not insects, it's light. All right, and this is speaking for what is surveillance, obvious identification of surveillance as well. And so this is Tracy Banks that's threatening me. She's going to a mental asylum. This is criminal conduct by the government as well that's threatening me. The people of the state that are going to prison and mental asylums that are threatening together. And this is, again, engineer light that is distinct from the stationary light, for example, that's still around the same front door like it was at 7:52 a.m. while this same demon was pacing in the kitchen. It is, again, at 10:56 a.m. while the fake sun is over the top of her apartment, like I've already captured the documentation regarding the fake sun. And then you have the documentation of what the entity is doing in Los Angeles, where LAPD is engaged in the same pattern of conduct, which is speaking to a statewide system of surveillance that is satanic. But I want to document that. It is 10:56 right now. The entity is maintaining this dynamic engineer light inside of a demon-possessed person's apartment. Her name is Tracy Lemire Banks. She goes by Jenkins as well. And she is gang stalking with the corrupt government, and the corrupt government is acting through a population, not just her, all of the neighbors, in other words, and everybody that's making deliveries, everybody engaging in landscaping, everybody that's employed at the venue, everybody that's gang stalking by residents around Woodside Senior Apartments in the city of Ontario is gang stalking, in other words. And I also have a body of evidence that independently supports that as well. This is understanding how the system operates and what it looks like. 10:57 a.m. Engineer light. This is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment and psychological torture, which is a basis for civil and criminal prosecution. P.O.C. All right, it's currently 11:57 a.m. where the fake sun is in the zenith over. This is the mental health patient. This is mental illness that's being exposed. That is shared by people in the same, engaged in the same system, suffering from the same condition. And their condition is that which is a threat to other people, where their condition is the speaking to the malice, whereby they're engaged in criminal activity. And I'm referencing this gang stalker, and who is also, this is a witch. She's a part of a witch coven. She's engaged in cult practices. She's engaged in spiritually attacking me as well, while she is literally a psychopath pacing around in her apartment. She's under the fake sun. Engineer light fills her apartment, and she's engaged in psychopathic behaviors, such as spiritually attacking someone and then standing in that person's face, for example, and smiling and talking to them, and then seeking to depict that person as being mentally ill. That is a demonic activity. That's a demon-possessed person. That's someone who is very well practiced in witchcraft, and that's what Tracy Banks is engaged in. It's currently 11:58 a.m. She's engaged in what she's going to be prosecuted for. So This is somebody whose witchcraft practices are going to land her in a high security cell where she's going to be treated for her mental illness, where she derives pleasure, and she's actually a delusional psychopath with multiple personalities. She is engaged in ongoing gang stalking right now, and she's doing so with the rest of the state that's being prosecuted along with her, practicing satanic methods of targeting someone along with her and criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment. So I want to document that the entity is maintaining the engineered light, which you're seeing if you're paying attention in real time. I am uploading onto the Google Drive the engineered light that's on her ceilings, along the wall, and it's engaged in ongoing creeping conduct. So I'll take a picture 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, the engineer light's disappearing. It's greater in concentration. It's a different size. It's in a different location. This is speaking to what is very satanic, where the light is essentially behaving like insects. It's crawling all about inside of her apartment. This is somebody that's deep into witchcraft, and this is what Tracy Banks has been practicing for a majority of her life, also with my blood relatives, but this is unbeknownst to me. I am somebody that is not serving Satan. I'm somebody that unfortunately has to prosecute my own relatives because they tried to murder me and get away with stealing things from me, and they're doing so in service to Satan. So it's revealing what is satanic amongst a government. Tracy Banks is not practicing witchcraft by herself. She's not demon possessed alone. She's not gang stalking by herself either. So I want to document. It's currently 12 p.m. The entity is interfering with criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment. While essentially, I want to be clear, the entity that's gang stalking, I want to speak to the witch that the Ontario Police Department are gang stalking with, and this is somebody that is engaging in spiritual attacks, and this is the reality of a psychopath. That is Tracy Banks, and again, a psychopath is also her son, Eric Spencer. He also practices witchcraft. He also is demon possessed. He also serves Satan. He's also gang stalking me, his relative, whom he is acting in furtherance of trying to murder me and wanting to get away with stealing money, and this is why he is so lacking in ambition, graduating from a community college, which again, no insult to those that have found graduation from a community college to be a tremendous accomplishment, and it is, whatever your circumstances are in your life. But I'm referencing a bunch of demons who lack ambition, who are lazy, who are demon possessed, and seek to profit and capitalize off of my accomplishments, and then have the audacity to try to add insult to injury, wanting to falsely depict my character when they are under all circumstances demon possessed, witchcraft practicing, sexually perverted psychopaths. And none of that is just mere name calling or the use of any hyperbole. That is exactly what is their condition. Now, experts that are not in California, that are not a part of the corrupt system, where you don't have any legitimate practitioners in the medical field. The state of California is entirely corrupt, and those that are in the medical field in California, licensed in California, they are mentally ill themselves while they are in the medical field, engaging in things such as rendering diagnoses of people when you're a whole mental case, okay? But I want to be clear that you have legitimate experts who are able to further expound upon the depths of the actual mental illness that is closeted, that the average person in California is walking around with, and then you have what is the entity that wants to maintain an outward demeanor. So this is speaking to mental illness that coexists and wants to appear in the same manner that another person without any criminal activity that lacks any mental illness, they want to appear as normal. Okay, so I just want to speak to that. It's currently 12:02 p.m. Tracy Banks' license plate is 9HUZ740. She is captured in images gang stalking in the dark while engineer light is around her front door. She is engaged in what is spiritually attacking me. This is somebody that relies on magic. She relies on voodoo. She relies on promiscuity, which is a form of witchcraft, that she exchanges dark spirits. And she did that with and does that with people who are formerly in my social circle as a means of targeting me. And then also because she is so envious of me and she literally wants to be me, it's the closest that she can get to engaging in what is incestuous sexual activity with me, having sex with those that are formerly in my circle, even those that I'm not even interested in, okay? The entity is in, and that's not to say that I had sex with everybody. I know that's not the case at all. This is a psychopath, and I want to be clear, her promiscuity is directly linked to her mental illness, okay? And she is one that is engaged in spiritually attacking me, and also engaged in what is, and also I want to be clear, federal group stalking and monitoring is a satanic targeting system. I am giving tangible evidence to prosecute in a court, and it's also providing what is evidence of an entity that is spiritually attacking me. So understand that I'm speaking to that, but I want to be clear. While I am in the sleep state, while I, like the demon was doing this morning, and that's why I took her picture, while she is practicing witchcraft, and that is the ability to engage in what is standing around looking like you're doing nothing that would be heard through my headphones while I'm listening to content and I'm asleep. This is somebody that's practicing witchcraft and is engaged in attacking me spiritually since I was a child. Also physically attacking me and sexually, attacking me. So since I was a child, and she's still doing so, even as a psychopath. That is literally, she's coming apart at the seams while she is counting down the moments where she's anticipating being arrested. She's anticipating a federal raid, and this is what justice requires. And this is why I'm also documenting down to that date, because of the fact that the federal government is watching her in real time while she's gang stalking me, while she's practicing witchcraft, while she's acting on behalf of a corrupt government. And also she's doing so with regard to everything and every lie that she's already put out there with regard to misleading others. Others do not lack in responsibility, though. This is a lesson with regard to participating in witchcraft. If you didn't know how you use the words that you speak, and when you're aiding dark spirits, referred to as gossip. If you don't know, when you're engaged in sexual activity and you're entertaining dark spirits, it's a form of witchcraft, fornication. That's a reason why these are sinful acts as well. But nonetheless, I just want to speak to what this demon likes to do, thinking that no one's going to know about it. Everyone's going to know about it. And I'm going to prosecute her for her criminal activity. But you also need to know that this is a form of spiritual, recognizing, in other words, the spiritual attack that I remain subject to. And what she's going to answer for, because she refuses to repent, that's between her and Christ Jesus. But you are witnessing somebody that refuses to repent. You are witnessing somebody that is utterly defeated as well. Okay, Satan is defeated, and Satan's head witch, is utterly defeated and absolutely demoralized and humiliated. And she continuously relies on witchcraft tactics. And you need to know that the government relies on and engages in satanic behaviors, satanic rituals, satanic which is criminal conduct. Their satanic system, which is a system of surveillance, which is underway, because she's doing so with regard to merely envy and hostility, jealousy. And why is this witch angry with license 90 UC 740? She's angry because she wasn't able to get away with murdering me. She's angry because she wasn't able to get away with defaming me and making me look like, while she's going around acting like she's me, which I don't understand how anyone could be under any sort of confusion with regard to a 60-year-old woman looking like me. I don't have any wrinkles. I don't have any gray hairs. I don't wear weaves. Okay, she has nothing. She doesn't have her hair is not as long as mine. Her hair is not even as thick as mine. She doesn't speak like me. She cannot act like she can speak like me. You have to be educated in order to mimic the speech. You have to spend a lot of time in a dictionary. She doesn't do these things. She doesn't read. Okay, she reads spells. All right, this is somebody that is under no circumstances anything like me. So you're talking about somebody that relies on witchcraft, that relies on sexual promiscuity, in order to fool those who are playing. They're willing to be deceived. It's under no circumstances could you ever actually be mistaken with regard to this elderly woman who is a witch and who is literally a whore. Okay, and mistake that for me and my character, or anything that I've ever presented myself as with anyone in my life. Okay, if any of these demons were honest. But you're not going to rely on the honesty of gang stalkers. The evidence speaks for itself, and this is the only aspect of the federal government sitting around watching that is providence. Okay, because the government is sat around and watch, and not only does my history speak for itself, the way that I currently conduct and live my life speaks for itself. You can only act for so long. The act only holds up for so long. And so I just want to be clear. I am fully in the business of pointing out demons and what demons engage in, what demons want you to think about them, what their actual objective is, because you need not be ignorant. And the demon possessed are obsessed. And this is including, again, the third party, Tracy Banks, who's engaging in what is witchcraft practices, attacking me in the spirit, while she uses things such as voodoo, uses things such as dolls where she worships me, uses things such as satanic altars, and none of it's going to come to pass. Isaiah 54 is absolutely true. None of the weapons formed against me, even by this Satan worshiping fake mother, it's not going to work. It shall come to absolutely nothing. And she's going to be sitting in her cell, a high security cell, a mental asylum. And she's going to sit around thinking about all of her tactics, which were unsuccessful. And she only has a limited amount of time before she, if she ever repents, before she serves what is eternal judgment. Okay, and I'm going to leave it at that if she does not repent. And everybody else that is walking along the same dark path, that is all that you have to look forward to. Eternal judgment, damnation, hell. Okay, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And this is somebody that is already miserable. And this is somebody who is being embarrassed in real time. And what does the demon do? She gets on the phone and the people of the state are being prosecuted with her. Okay, her phone records remain a part of the prosecution of the people of the state. 12:08 p.m. The people of the state are on her phone, engaged in federal stalking while they are monitoring me together. They are also the same entity that are engaged in the practice of witchcraft, voodoo, sex rituals, which is, again, the entity that is targeting me in the spirit, and I'm prosecuting them while I have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that they are actually targeting me in the natural, stalking me and monitoring. And this is the reality about somebody that is worshiping Satan. There's nothing elite about it. There's nothing that is pretty or admirable about it. There's nothing that is even powerful about it. There are those that engage in monitoring and they present themselves as though they're prophets, and they're not, they're demons. All right, you're not a prophet, and you're also not even clever, or nor are you actually disguised when one is able to discern the spirit of Satan, which I am. Okay, so those that are monitoring spirits are not actual prophets. And you have a lot of people who are on YouTube, for example, representing themselves as prophets, and they are monitoring spirits like Tracy Banks. They're witches. They're into witchcraft. They're into attacking people in the spirit, watching people in the spirit. That's what monitoring spirits do. Monitoring spirits occupy people's bodies, and that's what gang stalking is in the physical. Okay, this is what this witch is doing while I'm falling asleep, attacking me in the spirit, and I'm going to go ahead and share that with regard to her public demise and the ways in which you need to know. And in every way, I am shaming the practice of witchcraft, the serving Satan, who is a defeated, created being whose time is very limited, by which the prosecution of the state of California shows. This is why Christ has the victory over Satan and all of his minions. None of it works over a child of God who is covered in the blood of Christ. Okay, who with all of one's sound mind is able to prove, which again, amongst the corrupt government, you have to prove that you're being stalked by a bunch of demons who want to falsely depict your character when their mental illness is put on full display, while now they are reaping the harvest of that which they have sought to target somebody else with. Now they're reaping what they sow. In other words, they're going to be put in mental asylums like Tracy Banks. And she's incriminating her gang stalking son, who has bore false witness about my character. He's going to prison. Eric Corey Spencer. And he can thank his gang stalking mother, who continuously points to what he was doing when he made any sort of statements, when he is cooperating in any criminal purposes. It's pointing directly to all the co-defendants, and it includes her gang stalking, witchcraft practicing, demon possessed son, Eric Spencer, another relative that's engaged in the pattern of conduct. All right, and this is the prize that the entity wins when they engage in ongoing spiritual attacks. This is learning about what is very real, and this is not to point to, nor do I encourage. There's nothing to fear with regard to Satan and the practice of witchcraft. Those that are in Christ, I want to be clear. If you're in Christ, if you're covered by the blood of Christ, if you know him as your Lord and Savior, it's not just some sort of ritual act of just reading the words in the Bible that you don't actually believe in, that you don't actually live as a way of life. If you never accepted him as your Savior, that's not enough. I just want to be clear. It is the blood of Christ in and of itself that Satan, there is no competition with it, and no spell and no spiritual attack is successful against it. And that's why I'm able to stand in victory and prosecute a witch in the physical and call her out with regard to her spiritual darkness, and that the poison that she is the source of, she's the source of it. All right. She has engaged in what is essentially public corruption. But it's that which is born of witchcraft practicing. All right, she practices witchcraft. She's engaged in spiritual darkness. Her sister, Vanita Jenkins, her niece, Nairi Jenkins, and that's why she is actually suffering from a mentally ill condition. But it's based on the fact that Vanita and Tracy have been practicing witchcraft, and it ricocheted, it backfired with regard to Nairi Jenkins' condition, and the entity is gang stalking me. So I want to be clear, none of these third parties who I'm referencing have any privacy. They are in the shoes of the state targeting me, and the government that's targeting you, they don't have any privacy. All right, and that's why the entity is in the condition, and the entity is relatives of mine who have been practicing witchcraft for generations in my bloodline, and that's why you have what are actual conditions that manifest in the physical, such as the health conditions that one of my relatives has, Nairi, who has some severe mental deficiencies, and that's because Tracy and Vanita and other relatives have been practicing witchcraft. Like the entity sought to, and they are the entity, sought to target me with by gang stalking me, psychologically torturing a human being, engaging in these sorts of experiments on a human being is supposed to result in mental illness, and that's not what's happening because I am covered by the blood of Christ. All right. It is the victory that the children of God, those who know Christ Jesus as their Lord and Savior, you will share in that sort of victory. You will survive that because you are already victorious in what Christ did on the cross when he rose from the dead. Okay. No demonic spirit is any formidable adversary with the Holy Spirit. All right. It is currently 12:14 p.m. This is documentation regarding Tracy Banks. This is a sex offender. All right. This is somebody that literally is obsessed with me and is stalking me, not only in the spirit, spiritually attacking me, and she's doing so with all the demon possessed who are going to federal prison. They're all being prosecuted. They're all stalking in spirit together. This is witchcraft. Federal group stalking monitoring is the practice of witchcraft, and you're looking at what is a government, and its corruption is rooted in Satanism. But nonetheless, I'm prosecuting them. I'm pulling them out of what is just maintaining some sort of secret way of targeting someone, and I'm pulling it out and proving it in the physical because they're all going to be prosecuted together. All right. It is currently 12:15 p.m. The people of the state are gang stalking on Tracy Banks' device. All right. And it's 12:15 at inside of her apartment where Engineer Light remains cycling inside along the walls and the ceilings while this witch is engaged in what is attacking me. And witch is not some sort of epithet that I'm using, some sort of a slur term that I'm using. This is somebody that is a witch. She practices witchcraft. So I literally mean that. In the same way, when I'm speaking to mental illness, I'm not just speaking it in some sort of means of calling names. I am being very literal. And if you're aware of my documentation, I mean everything that I say, and everything that I say is also supported with evidence. Okay? It is currently 12:16 p.m. This is P.O.C. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes, and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C., and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state. And it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. All right, this is the Engineer Light in the corner inside of the defendant, Tracy Banks. This is the mental health patient that's gang stalking in the physical and spiritually attacking me in the spirit. This is Engineer Light. While she's monitoring somebody inside of her apartment, she's going to a mental asylum. And the Engineer Light is speaking to public corruption because the city of Ontario is gang stalking with her. Light activity while I am able to put my hand up in it. All right, and this is my hand right here. Okay, and the demon, the witch, is right in relevant position. I've been taking pictures. You've been seeing the Engineer Light on this door, across this wall, on the ceiling, and it's traveling this way. You're aware of the Engineer Light that's shooting on the front door. Again, impossible light activity, speaking to the witch. The defendant's name is Tracy Banks. She's going to a mental asylum. She is gang stalking And I'm also speaking to the reality, again, the entity that is engaged in practicing witchcraft, using voodoo dolls, erecting altars in my name, spiritually attacking me. That is what Tracy Banks practices. She practices it with the state, and this is what they plan to make their gang stalking and psychological torture tactics more potent. It's not working against somebody like myself who's prosecuting them. And here's again my hand, and you have inexplicable light that's shooting not from the sun, that's outside, by the way. This is light that's shooting horizontally in all manner of directions inside of her apartment, the defendant that's gang stalking on the opposite side of this wall. All right, and doing so in a manner that is irreconcilable. Also, bigger picture, the sun that's in Los Angeles over me, like I documented in 2024, is not creating any of the sunlight, and it's also not going to be over the defendant's apartment and all of the co-defendants gang stalking at the property, where you know this fake sun is still here, and doing so after 5 p.m., where the fake sun is in this position right where my finger is. That's where the fake sun is at 5 p.m. Okay, this is speaking to the pattern of conduct. This is engineer light that fills a defendant's apartment, and it's directly pointing to the mental illness of the gang stalkers. All right, this is not the product of sunlight, and here is the fake sun. This is P.O.C. The entity is engaged in criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. This is documentation of terrorism via directed light. It is the entity that is acting directly and vicariously where gang stalking is underway at an apartment building. And the entity is doing so while they are engaged in federal stalking and harassment terrorism. All right, this is P.O.C. Tracy Banks' license 98UZ740. This is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment that AVANATH Capital Management is also going to be prosecuted for. P.O.C. Alrighty, another iteration of Stalking with Light. As I open up the blinds, you're looking at shade. This is a covered patio. This is what is the stalking with light under what would be an idle fake sun, and also the impossible occurrence that sunlight is creating off of, bouncing off of vehicles, and that you're walking in it, creating light activity like the demons are outside. So that's AVANATH Capital Management, that's gang stalking, and I want to be clear, this environment is present for the psychological torture of the gang stalkers in units 33 through 64 who act with the population in the environment that is demonic, that defies nature. It's a scientific phenomenon. They're doing it with the defendant inside of her bedroom, gang stalking me and monitoring my devices and engaging in what is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment while you look at what is the practice of witchcraft. Okay, look at the demon's shadow. That's called impossible light activity. Okay, that's also a sex offender that monitors the genitalia between my legs. That's AVANATH Capital Management's demon possessed employee right there in 41, and he walks outside to monitor me. Okay, that's what he was doing moments ago. Multiple bodies, and with the blinds closed, there's shadows moving across this patio glass door. So I just wanted you to see what is the iteration of the same exact POC. They're all going to he's going to a mental health facility. Okay, him and all of his adult occupants. AVANATH Capital Management is a facilitating venue, not a natural environment. The fake sun is still here after 5 p.m. It's also rising here over the same building at 7:26 in the morning. They're gang stalking with minor children. They're engaging in a sex offense while in custody of minor children. They're engaging in psychological torture and gang stalking on video, and documentation that's going to be used against the state of California, let alone the entire venue. This is stalking by the AVANATH Capital Management company itself and its employees in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. All right, and that's a sex offender license. 9CZC059 is one of the license plates associated with what is gang stalking, which is proven with regard to the presence of the fake sun and that impossibility that you just saw light manifesting into the depths of an apartment, what is coming underneath a covered patio, and then his shadow that appeared on the inside of the apartment. Okay, just like you see my arm, this is shade out here, and that's light that's on the floor. That's also impossible. This is light that is shooting horizontally. These are demons who are indeed stalking. All right, and AVANATH Capital Management's employees are going to federal prison. In particular, that employee is going to a mental asylum. It is currently 2:28 p.m. This is demon possession in operation. The demon possessed people are gang stalking, and they are in fact mentally ill, and this is going to be used for their diagnosis and their placements in the federal facilities. They're acting as an entity. The city of Ontario's gang stalking while you see a fake sun reflecting off of a windshield, and that's the guys where you're looking at engineered light. Okay, it's not sunlight coming through Tracy Banks' peephole. It's not sunlight that's appearing and disappearing on her ceilings. It's not sunlight that's framing the same front door. All right, the entity is engaged in what is gang stalking and the supernatural presence of light in ways that defy nature and science and common sense in order to document it, because this is what an entity uses to psychologically harm targeted individuals who lack the evidence to prove that strangers are indeed stalking them. And the mental health patient in Unit 41 is going to a mental asylum. It is currently 2:29 p.m. This is the sex offense committed by the state. This is P.O.C. It is currently 2:54 p.m. The video that you just listened to is published on YouTube on the P.O.C. website, and everything is also published on the P.O.C. Everything is published on the P.O.C. website and the website for that where you can see it. This is the POC.wordpress.com, and on the P.O.C. channel is what I meant to say on YouTube, and the YouTube channel is referred to as the P.O.C. It's currently 2:54 p.m., 2:55 p.m. now. I'm documenting ongoing criminal acts of obstruction of justice, and it's relevant regarding who is being documented at the specific moment when the demons exhibit severe mental instability, when you have demons that are pacing on the outside of the apartment, and I have the evidence of that. I have the knowledge of that, not because I can see through the walls, but because the impossible occurrence of that shadows are moving about such that their shadows would be not on the ground under the sun, but they are appearing just like you saw, just like you saw if you view the videos, the video that I just published online of the gang stalking tactic by AVANATH Capital Management and Tracy Banks, who are the people of the state. The shadow of this sex offender that's going to a mental asylum in unit number 41 is stalking, and you know that they're a stalker because you'll see the fake sun reflecting off of a windshield. That's speaking to the significance of being in an environment where that supernatural occurrence is underway. It's also supernatural because of the greater context, because you also know that this is the same apartment building where I've documented the sunrise. And because of your knowledge and any fifth grade's knowledge about how the sun operates and how the natural environment operates, the sun is not in any position where it's going to be over one building, for example, which is to say that it has not moved over a series of hours, which is what I have with regard to the light source over the same apartment and the same stalkers in Unit 41 who are engaged in what is now pacing as the people of the state and not private citizens at a facilitating venue, not a private residence, under a fake sun for their gang stalking purposes. As you can see on the video that I'm pulling up on YouTube, at the same time, I'm subject to additional psychological torture with regard to Tracy Banks's engagement in gang stalking me with her neighbors, and with regard to the demons themselves gang stalking me, and with regard to the use of the impossible light activity, moving quickly and engaging in more of it. So as I pull up the video that I'm referring to, and you should look at it because it is profound, you will see evidence that which defies nature, your understanding of the natural environment if you never paid attention to what's above your head before, because while I'm showing you a fake sun that's idle over me, you are aware of what's exactly over you, and it's not the natural environment. And this is opening your eyes if you were before ignorant or denying the reality of the spiritual realm. Okay, this is the demonic, and these are demons who are stalking me, targeting me, and it's a violation of my constitutional and human rights. And you also are being violated constitutionally because the government is keeping us all under surveillance, and it is directly revealed through this environment that surrounds all of us that defies nature. And it's supposed to be, this is Satan's purpose in keeping what is actually not the natural environment, but fake suns over all of us everywhere we're at in this country. It's supposed to cause you to never question the character of the light or the cause or the source of the light that's covering everything. During the day, you are automatically assuming a sun, the natural environment is over your head, you're not thinking about or concerned about, and you are deliberately kept very, very busy in order to keep you from thinking about such things, in order to keep you conditioned with the mindset to get from here, point A to point B, accomplish this, accomplish that, whatever else that you're distracted with in life. When you're in a specific environment and you are being kept under surveillance, your communication devices and every detail of your life, which is unconstitutional, especially when the government has no warrant or probable cause to keep the average American citizen under surveillance, like the entity is doing to me in California, and the entity sought to and has conspired to murder and kidnap me in doing so. And so this is not only prosecuting the state of California, but it's exposing what we are all subject to, which is surveillance of a criminal nature. It's unconstitutional. That's how the government is on the wrong side of the law, hence criminal. All right, so The demons are engaging in what is a criminal act of obstruction of justice, engaging in what is the criminal interference with quiet enjoyment as you are prosecuting a third-party commercial actor such as AVANATH, whose property, where an American citizen is being gang stalked in its apartment building, in the third party's apartment buildings, that third-party commercial actor is going to be prosecuted civilly and criminally because it's also by the commercial actor's employees and their residents, who are, with regard to the bigger picture, the government's acting through the population. So the population uses its businesses, the population uses its residents, the population uses its whatever services that they provide, i.e. coming onto the grounds like Uber Eats, like Amazon, the municipality, like the fire department, like AMR. That's the government acting directly. And the people of the state that are gang stalking as an entity are in the shoes of that state. And that's understanding the malice. So I want to include this, the entity at the moment that I accessed the video documentation on March 3rd, 2025 at 8:56 a.m. Not only are you looking at duration of time analysis, you are always mindful of the fact and cognizant, which the federal court is as well, which with regard to the specific environment, which is speaking to the mental illness of the demons who are stalking me, and the government that's engaging in what is this malicious means of stalking me through a population that is all mentally ill. And their mental illness is also further demonstrated while they engage in psychotic pacing. And that's what a demon did as I accessed this video at the same time, which they are all aware of because I'm under surveillance online. And that's speaking to the mentally ill sex offender in her own kitchen as I'm prosecuting her while her gang stalking neighbors, her demon possessed neighbors who are as sick as she is. Perhaps you can make a distinction because she's blood related to me that she's more or less sick. I find it all to be equally sick and disturbing, regardless of the relation to a target individual. No person, no human being, nor an American citizen protected by the Constitution has any basis. You shouldn't be subject to this under any circumstances whatsoever. But this is, again, the mental illness put on full display while demons are pacing around in the environment that is literally speaking to how sick their minds are when you're engaging in this sort of targeting conduct, and the retaliatory measures such as somebody running about outside of the apartment at the same time that I pull up a video that the demons are hostile to, and a psychopath begins pacing, and their shadow is shown through on the inside of Tracy Banks's apartment across her living room window and the patio glass door. And you are aware of this because the video that you just listened to on the podcast and that you can see with your own eyes published on, and I've already published video of the same nature, the same quality, probative value, the same literal use. Actually, there are shadows appearing on the inside of Tracy Banks' apartment on her living room wall, east living room wall, while the sun is supposedly reflecting. For it to be reflecting, that means it's directly above that vehicle, and it's not in LA reflecting off of a windshield of a vehicle parked at Alvarado Gardens in front of unit number 41, where the fake sun is over that same apartment at 8:56 in the morning, like I documented in the video that I'm pulling up on YouTube, at the same time that a demon, that is a person that is severely mentally ill, engages in a pacing method with regard to crossing a path and light activity creation. And while the elements remain underway, all elements, audible activity, relevant positioning, and light activity are underway while a psychopath. Okay, and that's just recognize or identifying the entity in the physical, but you are aware of, everyone is aware of, even the court that's not spiritually interested in what's going on, but the courts are interested in the mental health state of the gang stalkers because they pose a threat to the public and themselves, and they will be subject to mental asylums based on the mental illness that they exhibit in the ways in which that they're stalking me. And the pacing and the engineered light and the light source and the retaliatory measures such as doing more pacing, more spectacular and circus-like light activity, that goes right back to their demented mind states. The demons who are gang stalking someone with the intent to psychologically torture that person, where it's not working on me, it's literally bouncing off of me and reflecting accurately on the demon possessed themselves. Okay, that's a criminal act of obstruction of justice, and I want to point out it is relevant to the mental health patients in units 41. Okay, the entity is under a fake sun, which is at the same time over me in Los Angeles, which is exactly what I'm referencing in the published video. And I'll go ahead and give you the timestamp for that on YouTube, where you can look at the video that I captured today. And I typically, generally speaking, give a reference to previously documented video evidence speaking to the specific environment. The specific environment identifies where stalking of a malicious nature, where on the surface you are not identifying stalking because there may not be any personal relationship, and there largely is not. That's how gang stalking operates, in order to have the inability to identify who is stalking you, because stalking is understood to be someone that knows you, someone that is targeting you. Gang stalking is that which the entity knows you, the entity is targeting you, and that knowledge and targeting pattern of conduct is identified through the specific environment. And that is proven through the maintenance of the fake sun that's over me in the same zenith in Los Angeles on March 26, 2024 at 2:28 p.m. And I am juxtaposing that with what the demons, the mental health patient in Unit 41, that is also a third-party employee for the to-be-prosecuted third-party AVANATH Capital Management, who is also gang stalking me. This is serving for draining their pockets. This is also serving for a criminal prosecution of the company itself. And it's also informing how they are going to be treated with regard to the domestic threat that they pose to throughout the state, because they have other properties where they are engaged in this targeting system in violation of the, for example, HUD rules that they are participating in at this HUD regulated property, and they're stalking in understanding the way that the federal group stalking and monitoring system works. You are vicariously acting as an entity, and it is underway while the company itself, the property itself, the employees, and the population are one legal entity that are targeting vicariously on behalf of the state. So that is translating into a civil prosecution, which in recognizing the malice of the people of the state, which is the malice of the state itself, and the ways in which you are prosecuting it and serving justice with regard to profiting from federal group stalking and monitoring that even your employees are engaging in. That company is held responsible. And also, just so that you know, and the evidence also shows, every business that is formed in California, that's operating in California, is engaged in federal stalking. There's a surveillance system that's no longer a secret by literally the provision of prosecuting the state, because of the specific environment that you are now aware of surrounds you. This engineered light, this fake sun over all of our heads, this is speaking to a surveillance system that remains in existence in this country. And it is also satanic. And it's also speaking to the conditions of those who exhibit the behavioral patterns that I've also outlined for you, where you can also recognize where you're being monitored. Okay. It is also the same pattern of conduct, the behavioral pattern that's exhibited through what are inanimate objects. Okay, but this is not advocating, nor do you need to sit around just studying refrigerators. Is your refrigerator turning on? This is not under any circumstances, and nor is this reason going to result in somebody being paranoid. There's a distinction between paranoia, and you're not called to, this is a call to be aware, to be informed, not to sit around in fear. You're watching Christ Jesus defeat Satan on a world stage and all of Satan's minions. And they're being placed in the appropriate facilities where they belong, such as the employee of AVANATH Capital Management who resides in Unit 41. He is gang stalking me under the fake sun with knowledge and malice and with impunity on March 3rd, 2025 at 8:56 a.m. on video. And so is the rest of every adult in that household. And he is also gang stalking me at 2:26 p.m. where science is literally being defied. We're over the same apartment building encompassing units 33 through 48. The sun is still over that same building today on March 23rd, 2025. And also the evidence speaking to in an entirely different region, nowhere near the sky space above this apartment building, that would be creating any sun reflecting, or no sun would be reflecting off of any vehicle parked on Woodside Senior Apartments property at all, let alone in front of the building where the fake sun is over, the same building at 8:56 in the morning. The fake sun is directly over my head in the same manner at 1810 North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles, California, where the Los Angeles Police Department is engaged in what is gang stalking me, including in the workplace. Which is the P.O.C. So this is where you will see that. This is speaking to the mental asylums where the defendants are going, and they are indeed subject to mental asylums. They engage in what is criminal acts of obstruction of justice. This is another psychopath just paces outside of the apartment, replete with impossible light activity to communicate a threat that is psychologically harmful, pursuant to knowledge that is federal stalking on my devices on the internet, speaking to impunity of dangerous psychopaths and violent sexual predators who are hostile to federal law, stopping them from being stalkers, stopping them from being co-conspirators to murder, stopping them from being co-conspirators to theft, okay, that is licensed by the state, facilitated by the state, all right, and engaging in what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture. This is what these psychopaths are hostile to. And it is what inspires and motivates the ongoing pattern of criminal acts of obstruction of justice, such as retaliation tactics with stalking with light, stalking with presence, stalking with amplified noise, etc. And all of it's demonic. It's the demon-possessed that are engaging in what is essentially a tantrum. But again, this pettiness speaks to a very high threat level with regard to what the ordinary target individual has a right to not be subject to. And it is a direct, violent threat to their life. It is no small thing when you have police departments stalking an American citizen. It's no small thing when you have government bodies stalking an American citizen, when you have the government criminally contributing to public corruption in furtherance of gang stalking someone because the entity itself wants to murder that person. Okay, that's why they're gang stalking. All right, and this is pursuant to what is a surveillance system. We're all subject to surveillance in the U.S., so that's headline news there. It is currently 3:10 p.m., March 23rd. Again, the entity engaging in this documented act of surveillance, the entity commits the crimes. I'm documenting it because they're going to asylums, and the more that they engage in it, it's speaking to the fact that they're not getting out of the facilities that they will be subject to. And the entire property is gang stalking with the psychopaths that are pacing outside of Tracy's apartment, pacing inside of Tracy's apartment, that will be herself, and pacing as a venue, and pacing as a city. They're all monitoring still obsessively, and they are, at this point, punishing themselves. They're bringing penalties on themselves. They're bringing public exposure to themselves, and they are fully exposing and providing a tutorial, literally a demonstration regarding what I already told you that they do, how they do it, what they know while they do it. And you're witnessing me just document while they do exactly what I told you that they do. All right, it's currently, and they being the demon possessed, they serve Satan. These are people that are given over to darkness. This is the practice of witchcraft. There are those that serve Satan who are demon-possessed who do not know it. There are those that did not know formerly. They're monitoring the evidence. They're gang stalking me while I'm simultaneously prosecuting them, so they are no longer ignorant. They are hostile to their condition being exposed to the public. They are refusing to repent, and they're acting in agreement with the demonic spirits that are using them to commit criminal crimes for which they have no defense. All right. So there are those that are ignorant. There are those that are no longer ignorant. There are those like the witch, Tracy Banks, who is not ignorant whatsoever. She actually capitalizes off the spiritual ignorance, if you will, the naivete of those who she preys upon. And this is the character of Satan as well. It is currently 3:11 p.m. and this is P.O.C. It is currently 4:40 p.m. This is the appearance of light. That's the location where it's appearing is speaking to how impossible it is to even see it in the first place. This is the shadow of patio furniture, the metal rack that's on the opposite side of the shadow of the of the patio that has a covered structure. So this would be shade. This would all be shaded amongst what is the natural environment, and it would also be shaded because the sun wouldn't be idle at the same location, which is outside of this defendant Tracy Banks' apartment, where she is gang stalking me inside of her own residence. She's engaged in ongoing harassment and domestic terrorism with the state, and this engineered light that's touching her patio furniture, that's appearing, the shadow of it's upright, and it's also at a lower elevation. The actual metal rack is this tall, and it's elevated, it's decreased in its height as the engineered light touches it, and the shadow of that engineered light is appearing on the patio glass door. This is what her co-defendants who are gang stalking me with her are doing when they're pacing outside and their shadows are moving across her patio glass door. They do so as an entity that's keeping one person, that is myself, under surveillance, and they're demon possessed to do so. It is also speaking to in the reference to the impossible, as you see the video above, that's happening at the same time at 4:40 p.m. where there is no sunlight. That's none of this manifestation of light has anything to do with the natural environment, where at this time of year the sun is in a location, in an area, and in its zenith over the top of my head in a different region, in a different county, where the pattern of conduct of the supernatural is regularly documented, which is what is referenced above on March 23rd, 2024 at the same time, 4:40 p.m., which is why I started this video. This is where you're going to see impossible light activity, as I'm referencing at 4:35 p.m. This has nothing to do with sunlight that remains inside of the defendant's apartment. The shadow of the furniture, this lamp is appearing on the ceiling. That is, again, the absurdity of the light activity. It's speaking to the apartment is filled with illumination of light. And that's what this is as well. You can see as I use my camera, there is light that is being aimed. And this is similar to the entity gang stalking, while the fake sun is the means where the sunlight is so vibrant. The sun is reflecting off of a windshield, and that's creating perfectly aimed light that's illuminating the defendant's apartment. It's not an actual reflection. That's not even the sun. It's not going to be the result when the sun is reflecting off of an object. These are demons and a demonic environment, and you're looking at what is the ongoing maintenance of engineered light, aiming on the patio glass door, removal, and then aiming back on the patio glass door, removal. And this is the ongoing pattern of conduct. While again, this is a psychopath that is both by definition gang stalking her own relative and also engaged in real-time monitoring. And this is actually a seething demon that's using this person. This person is identified as the defendant, Tracy Banks, but this is demon possession. The timing that she goes into the kitchen to turn on the kitchen light, it's simultaneous with my documenting the current state of affairs inside of her apartment. As I'm getting the images at 4:29 p.m., 4:29 and 14 seconds, 4:29 and 18 seconds, 4:29 and 22 seconds, where I'm getting this light activity that's in the same position it was at 7:52 in the morning, by the way. And then you have, again, coming out and turning on the light is a method of light activity and getting in the path. She's walking in engineered light. Engineered light fills her apartment, which is what I'm documenting. This is the shadow of my hand as I hold up to get the light activity inside of her apartment, okay? Which is, again, speaking to the P.O.C. All right, this is in reference to the pattern of conduct that this same entity, including the defendant, Tracy Banks. All right, this is, again, a sex offender. This is a dangerous psychopath with a murderous appetite. Somebody that is gang stalking myself with the criminal intent to criminally defame, to steal and get away with stealing, and also in concert with the state, and also engage in what is kidnapping with the state. So you're looking at the very low creation of the shadow of this metal rack on the opposite side of the patio. All right, this is all covered. This is, again, necessarily requiring that the sun is at such a specific angle after remaining over, for example, in the video that I referenced at 8:56 in the morning, captured this month, that the sun would be still over in any location to create any sort of sunlight, but also at this angle underneath the covered structure, so powerful that it's creating shortened versions of shadows of furniture that are on the patio, and it's got engineered light that's appearing underneath the shade. This is indeed a demon, okay? This is a demon. Again, this is the entity that is gang stalking me, and this is the identification of such documentation with simultaneity to the operation of my device. While I take pictures, the demon is arriving in concert with the demons that are outside pacing along with her in the sky space as well. This is the purpose of Ontario International Airport's engagement at federal group stalking and monitoring. It's a massive sex offense while the entity is engaging in this, and this is exactly what's underway while you're looking at what is light activity. That is where the entity is gang stalking by driving in the parking lot, walking in the parking lot, living in their apartments, flying over the venue, driving all around the venue, shopping at the 7-Eleven across the street. This is massive surveillance. And it's also satanic. And while you see this light activity, this is relevant with regard to what's happening on the same day at the same time. When you're looking at the light source here, that's 8GEN638, gang stalking in the path, listening to everything that I'm stating as I say it, stepping in the path of my camera with knowledge that I am in this, getting this vantage point. This is mental illness. And Tracy Banks has the same mental illness. They're all demons, and their mental illness is that of psychopaths who are targeting together. And it is directly relevant with regard to the criminal conduct of the psychopaths, the sex offenders in Los Angeles at the same time.
All right, I want to document what is Alexei Zagar, impulsive light activity across building number 1802 while he's crossing path. This is grounds of what is a mental institution for punishment. That's terrorism of the targeted individual. This is what the people of the state routinely engage in. AGJC179, impulsive light is moving across the dumpster and across his vehicle. 9CYE154. This is P.O.C. He was also monitoring with the LAPD the other day under the light source, and he's engaging in the ongoing act of terrorism. The people of the state engage in what is crossing path. They're stalking you in the path and surrounding with engineered light. The entity is criminal summoning, sounding walking around, and then later, you have moments later, what is the entity engaging in what is hitting surfaces with engineered light under what's not even the sun. License 6MFK661, she's the one going to federal prison. She's engaged in an act of obstruction of justice on camera. while I'm documenting, the entity is doing so, and this is what LAPD follows moments later. So I want to be clear, I'm going to go ahead and document her right now because she's not even parked while she's crossing path. Hi, you know you can't park here, right? Yeah, I just got to get something real quick. Oh, just for a moment? Okay, that's fine. This is the one that's crossing path on camera while I'm documenting. The entity likes to do that because, and they don't have, understand, ordinarily the target individual, it does not have the ability to identify what's going on, and you basically have no materials. You probably can't even articulate, you know, and this is why I feel for the ordinary target individual, because the people of the state engage in, oh, I'm just walking by, I'm not even focused on you, I don't even know your name. It's supposed to be the appearance of what is singularly maintained by somebody who's a paranoid schizophrenic. Okay, but for the documentation showing the specific environment, but for the documentation showing the stalking conduct of the state directly, all right, and but for a body of evidence that is showing that which is beyond any coincidence and everything that is outside of out of my control. Okay, you've got the Ontario PD, and that's just one, Ontario PD and LAPD. That stalking conduct in and of itself beyond my control, and I have a body of evidence I could prosecute just on that. All right, and this is P.O.C. Hey, Alexi, how's it going? This is also crossing a path, not only on foot, but also on vehicle, and impossible light across the venue of 1802 while I'm in my office, okay? And these are psychopaths that are targeting you while they outwardly want to appear as though they're just, oh, I'm just minding my business. I'm just crossing path. What you're looking at is demonic. So driving in, engineered light, walking in, walking out, this is demonic pacing. This is what LAPD is doing while flying in a circle. This is pacing in the engineered light. This is what the demons do as amongst a group. A psychopath.
AE33594, U-Haul is going to be prosecuted. U-Haul is a third party engaged in the pattern of conduct. They're providing instrumentalities of federal group stalking and monitoring to the population, such as using the truck. These are all sex offenders living under a fake sun at an apartment complex. They're all stalking in violation of the Violent Against Women Act. This is getting in the path. They're the same ones under this fake sun at 8:56 in the morning, and they're intentionally doing so right now as well. Walking in engineer light that's manifesting in the shade, intentionally doing so as well, while they're being documented for what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture. Those that are not natural born citizens, gang stalking, in an environment that is irreconcilable with the environment where LAPD is routinely gang stalking, they are going to be subject to what is deportation. All right, those that are in this country and have been granted the privilege, they are going to be subject to deportation upon prosecution, just like everyone else is going to be prosecuted. But those that have been given some sort of basis to be here and pursue the American dream, it doesn't include to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring with Tracy Banks, all right, who was inside of the apartment under the idle light source that is still here after 5 p.m. in perfect alignment with the defendant's patio glass door. You're looking at where the fake sun is on this day at the same time where the mental health patients in Unit 41 engaged in demonic pacing, getting in front of me. This is a method of very diligent timing of demons who know every move that I'm doing, so they're already in position in the event that I walk outside and get the license plate, okay? Getting in the path, walking into the unit, very easily identified with regard to the prosecution of the entity that is targeting together. That targeting conduct and stalking is identified in an environment that defies nature, such as the sun, at the same time over me in Los Angeles at what is Alvarado Gardens, in the same manner that I'm showing you here, and also the pattern of conduct of the sun rising over me at my apartment at Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, and the sun rising over me at Woodside Senior Apartments where the defendant Tracy Banks resides, a mental health patient just like the demon possessed who are gang stalking with her, and her impunity is exhibited while I'm documenting her today as she remains inside of the venue and engaging in what is ongoing harassment and terrorism tactics, okay? POC.
Path, one person is doing it. You're only seeing one person do this as a group. They're accomplishing this as one group, one after another, crossing path. That's what's happening right now, okay? And again, the obsessed stalker continues to stalk you while you enforce your rights. That's why the people of the state are going to be subject to that federal prosecution. That's why, okay? Because the obsessed stalker doesn't know how to stop. So the federal government is going to enforce the rights of the target individual to the furthest extent that the state has not even fathomed, okay? And it goes beyond the basic things, and I mean basic. It's basic to be subject to federal prison, okay? I'm seeking the federal prosecution of the people of the state is going to exceed the basic things that I have advocated. And you're seeing how and why it's necessary. All right, it's 4:44 p.m. This is the maintenance of the light source. Look at the documentation on April 29th.
And right now it is 4:51 p.m.
Look at it on April 30th. There's a whole body of evidence of what's not possibly the sun. This is prefacing everything that they're engaging in. All right, this is POC. Again, this license plate, she's going to federal prison. She's affiliated with 1812 North Alvarado Street, Apartment number 1, Precious Bastillos. They like to monitor with minors. 6 MFK 661. That's also relevant to the ways in which she's going to federal prison for facilitation, okay, while she's crossing path. She likes to engage in federal stalking, which is a violent sex offense with children. Understand the significance, as are all the people, because they're all monitoring with kids. But her specifically, that's exactly what they're doing at 1812 number 1. Those are the means whereby they're engaging in criminal facilitation with the LAPD, who provided a wealth of evidence against her, flying over, threatening my life while I'm capturing the entity.
All right, and so this is what is recognizing stalking, as they are in the same circumstance which defies nature. The people of the state driving the U-Haul, the people of the state with license 8GEN638, the people of the state in unit number 41, the people of the state at the venue altogether of Woodside, the people of the state that are inside of this bedroom right now, coming into gang stalk as I use my communication device, for example. This is the demon herself coming out and engaging in the elements of monitoring in close proximity. And the shared circumstance of being under the sun is that which is recognizing the malice of the corrupt entity that is engaged in what is gang stalking, referred to as federal group stalking monitoring. It's a circumstance that defies nature. It is impossible to occur. And you're also mindful of what I documented hours ago. While the same unit 41, is engaging in the pattern of conduct in this same defendant's unit at 2 o'clock, where I'm showing you the fake sun that's still over the same apartment that's on this day remaining over me in Los Angeles, was reflecting off of the windshield of the same co-defendants inside of the same parking lot. This is captured at 2:26 p.m. where I'm showing you what is the state of the covered light source. You're looking at the maintenance of engineered light. All it's doing is cycling all day long inside of the defendant's apartment and underneath the covered structure. The purpose of the engineered light is ongoing surveillance and activity creation, where all the entity is doing, a whole population is just concentrated on what I am doing as I do it, and I happen to be also engaged in documentation. All right, and their mental illness with regard to that level of malice and that level of what is entirely demented to even engage in it in the first place. And the government, the state of California, has a whole intricate system that also relies on unconstitutional laws that they exercise authority under in order to kidnap and criminally defame American citizens. That's speaking to mental illness. That is psychopathic. Okay, that's speaking to malice, not insanity, where one doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't understand what they're doing and doesn't recognize how they're violating another. This is a psychopath that's gang stalking. As you could see, the fake sun reflecting off of a windshield in the same parking lot 2 hours earlier.
What is the interlocking with light under what would be an idle fake sun, and also the impossible occurrence that sunlight is created.
All right, he walks through what is light that's horizontally aimed right onto the same patio glass door, and this is accomplishing the same purpose as having the fake sun in some sort of supernatural system whereby it rises in alignment to this apartment, it sets in alignment to this apartment, and all manner of whatever the position of the sun is, it's always in alignment to this apartment, even while I show you the phenomenon of the pattern of conduct of that environment is in Los Angeles, even at the same time, like in this video, but also that the sun is remaining in Los Angeles, never deviating from being over me in LA, even on a cloudy day. At what point the clouds move around or move away, that fake sun is over the top of my head. And the two are not happening. For it to be the case, which I'm documenting, it requires what is a mutual zenith, what is a mutual placement of more than one sun. The entity is engaging in behaviors suggesting that the sun is ubiquitous, meaning the sun is like the sky. It's over all of us everywhere in the same manner for the duration of the day, and that is not the sun. Okay, this is the entity gang stalking under a fake sun, knowing exactly, just like this same apartment full of demons. The unit 41 is what's walking on the sidewalk in front of me in the course of this video into their apartment, gang stalking under the same fake sun that you see reflected, and I put that in air quotes because the actual fake sun isn't in a position to reflect off of the windshield. This is the demonic. This is entirely demonic, and it's demonic while this demon walks through it to create light activity in the course of the video.
Bouncing off of vehicles, and that you're walking in it, creating light activity like the demons are outside. So that's AVANATH capital management, that's gang stalking, and I want to be clear, this environment is present for the psychological torture of the gang stalkers in units 33 through 64 who act with the population.
That is for the engagement, the joint engagement, the corporate engagement in psychological torture by those that both reside and come onto the grounds. Operating a U-Haul vehicle, U-Haul is a third party. If you are providing anything that is used with regard to domestic terrorism where the government's operating that program, that third party is going to be prosecuted. The entity is gang stalking as a matter of what are facilitating venues. I've documented the facilitating venue of U-Haul. They're not innocent, as I'm pointing to the P.O.C. Gang stalking me at Alvarado Gardens, I've already documented via the people of the state, and U-Haul is essentially the commercialized means of the people of the state, and they will be held accountable for that. And AVANATH is accountable for the people of the state acting with the population, coming onto the grounds, gang stalking an occupant, gang stalking, as I am in Los Angeles, a resident and the manager subject to this gang stalking system, which the same defendant, Tracy Banks, in whose apartment I remain subject to it, amplified noise while this demon-possessed gang stalker, this person that relies on witchcraft as a way of life, Tracy Banks, at 4:56 p.m., as I'm reciting the fact that U-Haul shall be civilly and criminally liable, amplified booming is heard inside of the defendant's apartment. That's pointing to her mind state, that's pointing to her criminal activity.
Environment that is demonic, that defies nature. It's a scientific phenomenon. They're doing it with the defendant inside of her bedroom, gang stalking me and monitoring my devices and engaging in what is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment while you look at what is the practice of witchcraft. Okay? Look at the demon's shadow. That's called impossible light activity. Okay? That's also a sex offender that monitors the genitalia between my legs. That's AVANATH Capital Management's demon-possessed employee. Right there in 41, and he walks out.
Going right into the same apartment. That's what the same household did on video right now, where the fake son is in the same position as I start this video at 4:40 p.m. when you're looking at what is this video evidence in Los Angeles, where there is no provision that the son would ever be over Woodside Senior Apartments on the same day at the same time. Also, the son is under no circumstances anywhere remaining over one apartment, over one address, which is the pattern of conduct that I've captured amongst psychopaths like the defendant that resides in the unit where I remain subject to this criminal system. And it is this psychopath that is gang stalking where I am inside of her apartment, subject to amplified audible activity, stalking via noise, subject to impossible light activity, stalking via light, and she is literally stalking in the path as the system of federal group stalking monitoring is identified. And with regard to her state action, this is not a private citizen, this is not a private residence. She's gang stalking with the state inside of her residence, and that's speaking to a mental health condition as a matter of fact. Okay, this is somebody that is also a violent sex offender, monitoring me with males and females, both inside and outside of the venue. They're gang stalking together with this psychopath inside of the apartment. And the more that I publish about her criminal activity while she's gang stalking in the apartment today, the more violent she's becoming with regard to her harassment methods by a psychopath who is engaged in the utmost means of what is passive aggressive behavior. Very psychopathic, very, very disturbing. All right, but I want to make sure that that's clear. And that psychopathic personality is proven through the fake son, the engineer light, and the gang stalking tactics by her co-defendants, Woodside Senior Apartments and AVANATH Capital Management. All right, the light source that's remaining over Los Angeles at the same time is not the natural environment as I'm capturing it over me at Woodside Senior Apartments. The two that you see here, this is not the one sun. This is also not the natural environment, and it's the P.O.C. as I'm documenting on an ongoing basis in Los Angeles, and I'm documenting as I remain subject to it here in Ontario, California. It is again currently now it's 5 p.m. This is P.O.C. Crossing a path, activity creation, and engineer light. I'm doing so while the light activity is appearing, speaking directly to the malice, the desire to murder, the desire to steal, the desire to criminally defame, and all of the instances documented with regard to the corrupt courts, gang stalking with the defendant. They are going to prison as well. Okay, this is the entity where the sun is over in Los Angeles. This is no product of any sunlight. It's pointing directly to the demented mind state of the malicious psychopaths who are gang stalking. All right, it is currently again 5 p.m. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, in the images you see, I took screenshots where the mental health patient that is pacing inside of Engineer Light where they reside, and they are representing an entity. This is not an individual. This is not a sane or normal person. This is a demon-possessed gang stalker. But this is the defendant that's residing, that is also on video, exhibiting impunity with regard to conspiring murder, conspiring criminal defamation, conspiring theft with the state, and doing so with while the evidence is being captured in real time while she is walking into the light activity, creating activity, and monitoring the evidence while the entity is gang stalking with her, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment, communicating an unlawful threat. These are all the series of federal offenses that this sex offender, this is a mental health patient, Tracy Banks, is engaging in on video, okay? This is the entity that is acting with her while I'm showing you and reminding you of the video that you just listened to, the images that you will also see at 5:05 p.m. approximately while I'm capturing screenshots, and you can look at those screenshots, and I'm documenting this on the podcast because you are cognizant about what the entity is doing in real time, including this mental health patient, Tracy Banks. And at the same time, while I'm capturing screenshots, that they are, again, they're the ones that provide the footage, putting them in prison and mental asylums. And they're also, again, psychopaths by definition, hostile and infuriated, and inspired to engage in more harms to other people. That's a psychopathic disorder when they're engaging in criminal activity that's threatening another person in the first place. And you are doing so while you're gang stalking in the apartment where you live. The significance of walking to the stove on video, you're looking at the phenomenon of the fake sun that is at the end of the day still over her apartment, aimed in alignment, perfect alignment with me inside of her apartment. Engineered light, because sunlight does not create the shadow of objects in front of them or your person in front of you, like you're standing next to your shadow as opposed to looking down at your shadow on the ground. This is the mental health patient that's gang stalking in this environment, while again this psychopath knows that it is a matter of documentation, and this is again somebody that is severely mentally demented and engages in what is obvious criminal engagement under the false idea, and this is the impetus, if you will, of the whole system, but it's entirely unpersuasive, it's entirely illogical, but this is speaking to what is very, very sick with regard to the mindset. I'm going to engage in the criminal conduct right in front of your face, even while you capture video, regardless of how damning, how obvious, no matter how, the absence of any mystery any longer. There's no illusion created with regard to normalcy by the entity. So you are openly engaging in that, first of all, being a demon, second of all, being what is somebody that's terrorizing and gang stalking their own relative, and all of the totality of that evidence. Remember, I'm just using Alvarado Gardens as I lived and worked there, and I went into video right now speaking to 4:40 p.m. or I'm at 4:40 p.m. on the same day, 365 days ago. The sun was in the same manner over me in an entirely different region in LA County at Los Angeles, where that sun would begin in a perfect alignment with my living room window, and in the day in perfect alignment with me through my bedroom window, the pattern of conduct. As I documented, the demon-possessed, the demonic environment, engages in what is a very minor, it's not even a deviation, an alteration of the same pattern of conduct, meaning covering it up for a couple of hours with clouds, and while the clouds then dissolve, the fake sun is still there over me. There is no deviation in the pattern of conduct. It is never the sun at any point in the day, where I've already captured its the sunrise, and then for it to be covered up with clouds, for example, and then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's over the top of my head, where the sunrise and my apartment is just feet away. All I have to do is literally face the opposite direction in Los Angeles, where the over the hillside is where the sunrise was, in perfect alignment with my living room window. That is the entity that is gang stalking in a very obvious manner, and then also the character of that light. This is filling the defendant's apartment. And you're looking at somebody that has zero regard for the life of, remember, I'm not just any person, which you shouldn't be having any sort of disregard for any human life, but she is speaking to open disregard for my life, and I'm her relative. I'm supposedly her daughter. Not supposedly, I actually am, but this is somebody that wants to maintain this demeanor as being a loving, sane, caring mother, and she is openly engaging in what is the maniacal and psychopathic and obsessive criminal engagement in the elements of monitoring. She's gang stalking where she lives, which is entirely characteristic of somebody severely mentally ill. You're engaging in what is stalking someone where you live, because this is supposed to be the perfect plan where no one would ever suspect that you're engaging in targeting where you live. The notion of stalking, how do you even stalk where you're living? And I'm showing you through the specific environment, through the targeting with the, it's stalking, which is pursuant to monitoring. Legally speaking, when you are being monitored, somebody is stalking you, having a no warrant or probable cause for the government to do so. And that's what the city of Ontario, the government itself, is doing. As I show you what the city of Los Angeles, what LAPD, what the city of Ontario, what Ontario PD, for example, if you want to just get to the law enforcement aspect, but it's the entire government. Okay, this is why you had the city of Los Angeles coming in, emptying the dumpsters, gang stalking, and doing so. The elements of monitoring, not ignorant about impossible light activity, not ignorant about amplified sound of the activity that they're created when they're emptying the dumpsters under an idle fake sun. This is the stage where the whole pattern of conduct is underway, and this demon is exhibiting severely demented, a severely demented mind state, and very cold-blooded in her execution of gang stalking. And it is an outright failure. Somebody that is, again, very delusional, but nonetheless very egotistical with regard to her ability to fool people, with her ability to appear one way, with her thinking that she's some sort of magician. And you are looking at somebody that is nothing other than a bloodthirsty, sexually predatory psychopath, because she's gang stalking while she walks from her bedroom to the kitchen. And you are not forgetting the fact that the fake sun is over me in her apartment where she is. It's legally significant, your activity of walking from one bedroom to another room, and while engineered light is on your living room wall, the same living room wall where you saw shadows moving across that living room wall. And then this is the short-minded and intellectually inept, those that rely on things such as flattery. They rely on their promiscuity. They rely on their use of witchcraft. They rely on their connections with corrupt public officials and the rest of the demons who are gang stalking as a way of life. These are demons that target people. And so she is a part of this community, and she is gang stalking me where she's living. It's very obvious with regard to where she's doing it, where she lives. And it's also very obvious because of the environment inside of her apartment and outside of her apartment, okay? And it includes the entity that is doing so in real time. Okay, so the entity is gang stalking commercially right now, 5:14 p.m. while I'm pointing out the defendant's mind state, which she is showing you while she's gang stalking in her apartment under the fake sun and an engineered light, which could not possibly coexist with the sun. That is the natural environment, meaning I am subject to the same criminal pattern of conduct by the state, the same entity in Los Angeles under a fake sun amongst engineered light in concert with the apartment complex that was targeting, just like the psychopaths who are demon possessed and very severely mentally ill, while at 5:14 p.m. amplified booming is heard inside of the defendant's apartment. That's going directly to the psychopath, as she knows that I'm speaking to her demented mind state. All right, she's engaged in ongoing communication of a threat, and so is AVANATH Capital Management, and so are all her co-defendants who would rather continuously gang stalk somebody who is prosecuting them then cease to engage in what is a failed effort. Not only is it a fail, but it's an embarrassing exposure of what the state has been doing for a very long time and what they are engaging in against me and continuously doing so. It's federal charges and damages as I document ongoing amplified booming inside of an apartment where elderly people are living like Tracy Banks, and you're seeing that there is no slowing down with regard to the energy that is used by this elderly woman who was a violent sex offender and who is, again, the character of a serial killer, a threat to herself, a threat to animals, a threat to children, a threat to the public. And this is actually the case of the demon possessed, and this is what I want to speak to, because you have a population that's practicing and targeting me with her, and they're all demon possessed. They are all, in other words, engaged in the same psychopathic pattern of conduct, exhibiting the same level of psychopathic level of malice while they're gang stalking where they live under the fake sun in engineered light. When you're seeing shadows of furniture appearing across from itself, when you're seeing light manifesting in the shade, when you're seeing light ricocheting off of objects like windshields, when I'm inside of a structure and the reflection is occurring on a vehicle outside, and they are not ignorantly but intentionally walking through that, monitoring in real time, this is speaking to their mental illness. The amplified audible activity at 5:14 p.m. is criminal conduct that AVANATH is criminally liable for. Linda Reyes is, again, mentally ill. And she is somebody that is gang stalking while I'm inside of the apartment where she is working at this venue as a malicious third party, the community manager that is also gang stalking under the fake sun at 10 o'clock in the morning. All right, before daylight savings time, that will make it 11 o'clock in the morning. Guess what? With regard to the duration of time, let's count the hours together. 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours later. This is the clear evidence and the malicious and intentional, and it's also unreasonable to suggest that this duration of time, that this engagement in the elements of monitoring, the ways in which you're monitoring somebody and psychologically torturing while targeting through your activity creation, which is tangible evidence for everyone to witness, is something that you're ignorant about, and neither will that be the case under law. So you're talking about Satan, who is a liar. You're going to prosecute Satan. Satan can sit there silent. Satan can sit there providing testimony to the court. Satan is going to be prosecuted, period. And that is, again, Linda Reyes, who was documented under the fake sun. So there's no passive engagement on her part in gang stalking me as a corrupt third party, who is also incriminating her employer, who I am going to civilly and criminally prosecute. All I'm doing is I've documented the community manager so that you are aware of what I've already told you. The entire population, including the entirety of the venue. That's why you have crossing of path, not private activity, not any constitutionally protected activity that's occurring within the execution of one's employment. It's a facilitating venue, and the fake sun that's over me in the same way that it is in Los Angeles, which could never naturally be the case, is speaking to what Linda Reyes is going to be subject to federal prison for. And it's not limited to her work schedule. And so she provided evidence against herself when she engaged in the impermissible threat. This is a state actor, as though you're going to defy and tell the federal law, communicate to a federal court, in other words, or the state is going to communicate to the feds, in other words, that you're going to gang stalk and defy what is the evidence. There's no mystery here. The entity is relying on some sort of illusion where I'm speaking and I'm describing, but you don't see it, and it's all a matter of, this is somebody. The entity has utterly failed in that creation of that illusion. The magic's not working. Okay, the entity that's engaging in this malicious pattern of conduct is obviously and clearly engaging in that pattern of conduct, which is also fully laid out, even in a document with regard to how you're prosecuting it. And this psychopath that's gang stalking amongst amplified audible activity is Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ 740. And this gang stalker, this psychopath that's gang stalking amongst impossible light activity is Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ 740. All right, this demon-possessed psychopath that's gang stalking under the fake sun is Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ 740. Doing so with regard to the criminal obstruction of justice. This is somebody that is, again, speaking to the psychopath that's accustomed to getting away with targeting other people, murdering people, engaging in what is sexually violating people, and then those people suffer in silence. Nobody believes them. Whatever work of witchcraft, whatever work of corruption with a corrupt state that she's cooperating with, a population that aids in criminally targeting other people, typically getting away with it. In other words, this is the psychopath that's crossing path, creating light activity and audible activity on video, in the video that you just listened to. And while I am in the midst of capturing that evidence, where everyone is learning about witchcraft, yes, but the demonic, which is something that the government is no longer capable of remaining ignorant about anyway. Okay, so the demonic is relevant to the federal government being able to recognize malice of a corrupt public entity like California that is indeed targeting American citizens. No one is ignorant about what this witch is doing, walking into the kitchen, stalking with activity, and failing. And what is this demon-possessed person's desire to appear innocent? You don't look innocent under the fake sun and engineer light amongst amplified audible activity, which I also narrated in real time. I'm subject to it while she then walks out of her bedroom. This is an entity that's speaking to, this is Tracy Banks that's speaking to her disregard for my life, for wanting to even cease to stop. She doesn't want to cease from targeting me and is determined until the day that she expires to continuously do so. This is somebody that is totally given over to Satan with regard to spiritually what's happening here. But this is with regard to a criminal that's acting with impunity and deliberately. That's a national security threat. This is illustrative of the national security threat that is the demon-possessed with the City of Ontario government, the City of Ontario departments. This is illustrative with the City of Ontario, the people of the state, driving the U-Haul vehicle, pacing into apartment number 41, operating vehicle with license 8GEN 638. They're all acting together, targeting me as one entity. And this demon is gang stalking inside of her apartment. Amongst all of those, again, supernatural features regarding a criminal pattern of conduct. So I just want to break all of that down. This is somebody that is entirely delusional. That's also relevant to the psychopath that is Tracy Banks, very severely mentally ill, and has been able to avoid an actual diagnosis for a severe demented mind state while getting away with criminal conduct that she knows very well is criminal. She knows very well is weird and creepy. She knows it's dark. She knows it's predatory. It's perverted. It's sick. It's satanic. And this is something that someone like Satan wants to appear one way and is actually entirely different. This is what is remaining in units 33 through 64 who are gang stalking with this with their co-defendant inside of the unit. Amplified audible activity speaking to their impunity. In other words, their worthiness to sit in the cells where they're going. Period. The entity, it's always pointing right back at them. And that's another way of putting what is a return to sender with regard to their malice. What is a return to sender with regard to their efforts of criminal defamation? It's an abysmal failure. All right. While the entity relies on what are outright lies that are clearly unsupported, unsubstantiated, exaggerated. In other words, entirely fabricated. There is nothing actually in my personal life that I have anything to be embarrassed about at all. And I mean that. I can actually stand question as a normal human being, having nothing that I've never engaged in it. And this is, I'm going to be honest here. Okay, I'm going to be frank because I'm always being honest. I'm going to be frank. I am not stating the details of my life in order to point the finger at other people and judge other people, because none of us are perfect. I am a sinner in need of redemption and forgiveness by Christ Jesus like anyone else. Okay, so I'm not stating it to state that I'm superior to anyone because of the way that I've lived my life, my entire life. But I will say that I am an imperfect human being like anyone else. But there are just things that I have never done, period. I never did it. And my imperfection relies on, I am a procrastinator with regard to getting when I was in college, I would wait till the last minute, but I work great under pressure. So with me, it's a strategy where another person might look at that as a weak point, but that's how I was motivated to do work that I could have got done on schedule, and got it done in a timely manner, even ahead of schedule. But I like to wait and do an all-nighter. If you find that to be a weakness, I have engaged in going on dates with guys that I just did not like whatsoever, and I would cut them off, change my phone number, which again, I don't find that to be wrong because I don't owe them anything. If something about them bothered me, then that's what I did, period. That has nothing to do with any sort of failure in character or my personality. I do discriminate with regard to who I allow in my circle, and the people who are in my circle, they went out of their way to maintain the demeanor that they were similar to me, that they had the same sort of view that I view. And if they were different, we were compatible with regard to, we met with regard to our personalities and getting along and having history. But these were people that were totally far from anything that they represented themselves to be. That's how they were ever in my lives in the first place. And you need to understand that. Just like the poor actress that is Tracy Banks. Okay, that's how you have a demon-possessed person, a psychopath, a mental health patient like this in my life in the first place, because they have been wearing a mask the entire time. Okay, I have never engaged in any sort of promiscuity, if you will. And there are people that have all manner of different testimonies, but it's just something that's never been a part of my past. I personally, well, it's not even personally, I was raised actually by this witch, and I think that this is something that was a strategy. I think she anticipated on me being a rebellious child, and so when she taught me to wait until I was married, to have sex, I was not a rebellious child, and I actually fully intended on waiting until I was married. And so even though I didn't actually wait until I was married, this is the case, but there's never been a promiscuous history of mine. That never existed. I was never like that. Even though not waiting until the exact point of marriage, if you will, which is, again, a point of imperfection. Yes, I am a fallen person like anyone else in need of a savior, but promiscuity has never been a part of my history. And why am I going into such details about my personal life? Because these are things that I don't have anything to be ashamed of. Because first of all, I'm forgiven. But second of all, the entity that is actually demon possessed and mentally ill, they are projecting onto me what is their character flaws, okay? So, I mean, serious promiscuity. You're talking about dozens and dozens of people. You're talking about a 60-year-old that has a lifestyle of promiscuity that is nothing like the woman I am. And this is just the truth. This is not me criticizing. This is somebody that's gang stalking me, and she's being dragged by her own. She's the one that's gang stalking on video. She knows that I'm documenting. And so do the rest of the demons. They're the ones that are doing it while they are being exposed. So at this point, at what point am I doing it to you, or are you doing it to yourself? Okay? They're the same ones, and you are always cognizant of the lies that they have told in these corrupt courts, because that's exactly what is going to put them in mental asylums. This is the same entity that engaged in what is kidnapping and never having any lawful basis, not only because they manufactured circumstances in order to kidnap under all circumstances, but the entity doing so while exercising authority it doesn't have, because the entity is engaged in what is targeting me. You're stalking me the whole time. Okay, so the kidnapping is another iteration, a very severely life-threatening iteration of the same exact targeting system. And then the entity is again fabricating information about me, about my history, about my lifestyle, about the person that I am. All right, and so I just want to speak to, this is not pointing the finger at anyone else. This is just I am capable of being upright, and because my whole life is literally on display, because I'm being targeted by the state, and then having to go through what no other person should have to go through, discussing things and having to address things that you shouldn't even have to address, because it's none of your business whether you are a virgin or not, for example. And the entity, insofar as the ordinary target individual, an American citizen, that is private information. It's something that the government doesn't have any legitimate interest in, but because of the nature of the state's pattern of conduct, because of the nature of the crimes committed by this entity, my lifestyle, and the entity that went so far to make up things about me, I am the worst person that they could have ever done it to. Okay, I have been a professional. I have been an upright citizen, a law-abiding citizen, focused on my academic career, having aspirations to go into government, to go into law. I already knew from the beginning, not that I ever had a desire to be a criminal, but I already knew from the beginning to maintain an impeccable record, because I wanted to seamlessly get through law school and perhaps go into politics. And I never wanted to be, tainted with that sort of reputation. So this is how I've always been this person with this sort of mindset, always. Okay. And the entity that is, the federal government, in other words, that is actually doing a legitimate investigation, that speaks for itself. And I've never been concerned about that. So this is somebody that is speaking to her own promiscuity when she's lying on my character, speaking to an admission about stalking me, when she's making any fabrications about my relationship with any person. And there is no relationship that I've had with anyone that has been substantial enough to even get to the point of seriously considering a male in my life. And I understand why now. They've all been demons. They've all been targeting me. They've all been her sex partners. They've all been psychopaths. Very severely sick in the head, very sick, okay, very perverted, okay. None of them at any point stating, for example, you know what? I think I like old women. I think I'm into elderly women, and I just want your blessing. I just want to let you know, maybe, I don't know how you feel about that, Erica, but I think I'm going to go ahead and pursue a relationship. Your mom showed up at my house, or your mom showed up at my job, or I met up with your mom at a hotel, or I met up with your mom, at a restaurant. We had dinner. Nobody ever had those types of conversation. None with me whatsoever with regard to these relationships that are fostered outside of my knowledge. And this is how it becomes directly relevant. The promiscuity of the entity that is Tracy Banks. This is a liar. And I want to be clear, these lies are an integral aspect regarding what is witchcraft that she practices. Legally, it's referred to as defamation. But these are nothing other than word spells. It's nothing other than just trying to speak into that which is never going to be the case. And it also isn't going to work against myself, a child of God. And I do believe in waiting until the Lord blesses me with a spouse. And I also want to speak to, there is no such thing as some sort of kingdom marriage that's in the Bible that I read and I know well. Kingdom spouse, this is not any sort of phrasing that's in scripture, and I do not under any circumstances even acknowledge that that's another demonic doctrine, man created by man. It's something that is a part of what is these doctrines that, again, a lot of people that practice witchcraft are into. This is the focus of this gang stalker that is Tracy Banks, having sex with as many people that I know, because she's thinking that she's eliminating what's going to be my future spouse, or what. She's fully and mentally sick. And then it's inspiring her conduct, which becomes criminal because she's gang stalking. And it's also pointing to and incriminating those who she's engaged with, because those are third parties who were in my circle as well, targeting me in this manner as well, not sexually, but targeting me with regard to engaging in the pattern of conduct, engaging in federal stalking. When they're talking to me on the phone, they're monitoring me. When I'm in their presence, they're gang stalking me with the state in the same way that I'm documenting on video. So now you're just understanding and mindful of the fact that those who were in my social circle were gang stalking me in the same manners, and I was ignorant about it, while they were also having sex with my mom behind my back. This is psychotic, very psychotic, and it's very sick. And this is why I stress with regard to how this is coming around full circle. This is someone that has been out of her rabbit mind since I was a child, okay? And she is having a public breakdown while she is gang stalking on video. And this is somebody that's having a breakdown that is very proud. Okay, this is the spirit of Satan, somebody that is very full of pride, but it defies logic. Where does this pride and ego come from? Because you are fully being bullied by evidence. She's being bullied. She's being overwhelmed. She's being overcome by the proof of what she is and what she has done and what she sought to do and what she's continuously doing in the face of, okay, well, everyone sees you. You might as well be walking around naked, because that's how obvious you are right now. Okay, while you're gang stalking me in video evidence in the environment that none of you are ignorant about. This is the same person that has lied on my character, lied about the person that I am, and she did so secretly. And I want to be clear, a person like myself, a person that she knows who I am, and she knows what would be the result, and it would be this. This is the result. A triumphant victory would be the result, in the name of my Lord Jesus Christ, would be the result. This is why she had to, somebody like this high school graduate, this mental case, doing so secretly behind my back in ways that are not even logical. As I point, this has nothing to do with the operation of law. This isn't even any sort of syllogism on any level. It requires public corruption, what the state of California has committed. It requires it. It requires that you are necessarily corrupt and aware of the fact that you're engaging in what is targeting an American citizen, while the entity did against me. It's criminal to do it against anyone, but somebody to do it against myself, with my history, with my accomplishments, with my character, both personally and professionally, which is also being exhibited while I'm in the midst of documenting it. I'm the same person that they stated. I'm so much of a promiscuous person. I'm so mentally just incapable of holding it together. I'm so amiss and lost, but you have a consistent body of evidence for a prolonged period of time, regardless of the fact that you may have never heard of these notions, things that I never heard of either. I literally had to create it in order to use words and convey the ideas and thoughts in order for you to understand it, because it's so psychotic, it's so satanic. All right, but nonetheless, it is consistent, and it is nonetheless tangible evidence, not impervious to prosecution, and you are not ignorant about it, regardless of the fact that it is demonic. In other words, it's unprecedented, and it's that which the government has never been proven to be engaging in before. It is all the more probative. It is all the more damning, and it is also direct evidence speaking to what is necessarily a corrupt entity that sought to target someone like myself. And that speaks to, again, the entity that has done this to a lot of people with far less education, far less skills, far less abilities to enforce their rights, to advocate on their own behalf, all right, to protect themselves. All right, to respond and resist what is the bully, who are the population of demons, the government full of demons that are targeting them. And that's what's walking in essentially into the kitchen, gang stalking on video. And this is an outright psychopath amongst the amplified noise and under the remaining fake sun. On this day in 2024, I captured the fake sun at the tail end of the day, as I referenced the video at 4:40 p.m. But I've already captured the sunrise and the sunset at this same apartment complex where I both live and work. And that's all you have to do, because the natural environment never at one address encompasses the sunrise and the sunset. The sunrise and the sunset isn't even going to be at one end of Hope Boulevard and at the opposite end of Hope Boulevard. That's not the natural environment either. All right, this is the asininity. as I just hone in, because I'm one person. So I'm honing in on where I'm at, and it's giving you the ability to understand the bigger picture, especially the more and more documentation is accumulated and you are able to recognize and appreciate the malice. And in the aggregate, that body of evidence is proving what is beyond a reasonable doubt, public corruption by the state of California. And these are severely mentally demented mental health patients. They literally are. And this is their criminal activity is going to be used to diagnose them, to clinically diagnose them, where they will remain in mental asylums just like Tracy Banks. Okay, this is somebody that shows her disregard for me as a person, her hatred for me as her daughter, while you're looking at her engaging in the gang stalking on video and in images, because that's what she's doing when she's walking into the kitchen, turning on the kitchen light as I'm taking images. That's a demon that's stalking with simultaneity. In the same way, the amplified noise. You can take this demon out, and this is what the entity does via helicopter. It's the same formula, the stalking with activity creation. This is what the entity does with helicopter. This is what the entity does with planes. This is what the entity does with the sound of the train. This is what the entity does with the amplification of any method of noise with simultaneity. This is a demon possessed person that's gang stalking me, and her relationship to me is directly relevant to her demented mind state and her desire to literally kill me. She's also engaged in witchcraft, and she is using witchcraft to spiritually attack me, which is what gang stalking is, amongst a bunch of demons who are targeting me both in the spirit, and they're also targeting me as I'm prosecuting them in the physical, and their pattern of conduct and the environment where they're engaging in this pattern of conduct proves it. And no one is under any sort of illusion. Okay, the entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct and is doing so. So I just wanted to go into a little bit as to why the mental illness is so clearly shown, and how it is literally inextricably linked to the ways in which the gang stalkers shall be prosecuted. It is a necessary and inherent to identifying the need for mental health. There is a mental health crisis in the state of California, and it is not borne by those who are subject to the pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring. All right. So nonetheless, it is currently 5:38 p.m. The entity stalking with amplified noise, and it's going right toward the damages that are going to be awarded. As I stated before, the entity that is sitting around the federal government, that is aware that I am being targeted by the state, that I have literally provided a nicely tied ribbon around the prosecution of the state and handed it to the feds, while you have psychopaths like Tracy Banks and the entity that is acting at large, while I'm just naming the demons in Unit 41, the demons of Unit 47, and they can move wherever they want. You're looking at U-Hauls, just like the demon in Unit 42. You can run, but you can't hide. And that's justice, by the way, because that's the purpose of gang stalking. The ordinary target individual is never supposed to be able to escape, even unto death. That's what they intend to do. They intend to kidnap you, and they intend to murder you. And you're never able to escape that. And it will be, I want to be clear, this return to sender includes you're not escaping prosecution. You can move wherever you want. And you're gang stalking while you're so-called moving yourself off of the property. That's no removal or excuse from a prosecution. They are gang stalking through and through, from beginning to end, and you are not escaping a prosecution. The long arm of the federal law will find you, and you will be prosecuted. All right, and justice requires that. The entity is engaging in this P.O.C. With impunity, and this is the same entity that has spoken many, many lies, which it relies on in order to prosecute someone like myself. Now, all you need to do is juxtapose my position with someone that perhaps does have a past, a history with addiction. That doesn't make them equal. That doesn't make them somebody that under the law should be subject to criminal defamation, and that doesn't make them the entity. The entity remains, in other words, entirely illegitimate, and everything that the entity has tried to I don't even want to say expose. The entity that everything that the entity has tried to defame the target individual with regarding who they are as a person, they're doing so pursuant to criminal activity. You're stalking someone. That's how you know that perhaps they have an addiction issue. You're stalking them. It's analogous to the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine when you're prosecuting under state law. And none of it is legally relevant. The entity that is gang stalking someone is always using what are the shortfalls with regard to a human being who is being stalked and targeted. And then they're using that oftentimes fabricating it. And if it doesn't exist, like in my case, they're placing cameras in my private home. This is the same sex offender placing cameras in my home, and is engaging in sex rituals, engages in masturbation, is sexually attracted to me while she watches me in the nude. This is some of the egregious crimes that she's committed against me. And that's an egregious crime that this entire entity is going to be prosecuted for. The entity committed that together, by the way. And this is the same entity that creates lies about promiscuity because I'm dating one person, and then you're fabricating that, oh, I'm promiscuous and I'm sleeping with the whole neighborhood. I don't even speak to the whole neighborhood, as my documentation also shows. I'm not adjusting and changing my behavior all of a sudden because I'm documenting. I've been this person. I found myself subject to that which was peculiar, obviously peculiar to me, but so peculiar in a way that I know another person, not a part of this experience, may not be able to appreciate or recognize. And that's speaking to the malice that I readily identified at the outset. And so I commenced documentation in order to prove it, because I also know the nature of this satanic system. All right. And also know, as a prosecutor, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And that is, again, I'm not angry at that. Justice requires that. That's fine. And so I'll prosecute you in court, and I'll not only prove that you're gang stalking and define what that is, and have you provide ongoing confirmation about the truth that I speak about what you are and what you're doing. You're also providing proof of what it is that I've stated about them as well. They're demon possessed. And it is directly relevant to what is the alteration, the demented mind state of human beings who are, as we would acknowledge it in the physical, mentally ill. It's born of their spiritual condition, spiritual darkness, which creates a desire to harm others, to inflict suffering upon others. And they don't have to know that person. They could even be the closest person to them. It is equally psychopathic, to put it in generalized terms. And that is actual mental illness. All right. So nonetheless, I just I wanted to go over that because that's the psychopath that's gang stalking, and doing so on video, as you see. What is openly engaging in domestic terrorism in this country is going to be treated as the violent and intolerable threat to the lives of American citizens that it is. All right. And so since you like to openly engage in terrorizing American citizens, you're going to be treated like a terrorist. Terrorists from other countries, they're put in places like Guantanamo Bay. You're not less threatening because you're engaging in the calculated system of trying to break a human being down while the government is engaging in this program, this experiment among human beings, and trying to alter literally the fabric of who they are and their character, and perhaps their life's past, their life's opportunities, whatever it is that they are, whatever purposes that the demon possessed use to decide who to target whenever they decide to target an American citizen. All right. You're going to be treated like the terrorist that you are. And you can see that they freely, continuously, and without any remorse whatsoever, obsessively continue to engage in that pattern of conduct. The mental health patients in Unit 41 are demonstrating that. They are all going to mental asylums. And while they're pacing on video, you are outwardly looking at what is their secret with regard to closeted mental illness. Those are demon-possessed people, and you're not looking at on the physical, you're looking at people that are walking, and they're walking in a line into unit number 41. These are psychopaths who are engaging in the pattern of conduct of what is pacing. They did so through multiple bodies. The demon-possessed person, the male, is walking by, he's crossing path, and then the demon-possessed Latina female is walking by after him. They are pacing together while that demonic spirit is using both of their bodies to cross path with me under the fake sun. This is speaking to knowledge and the intent to do so, and the absence of ignorance, both actually and reasonably, in furtherance of committing murder and kidnapping and psychologically harming someone. They are living in the same neighborhood amongst the senior population where the government is gang stalking, which is putting them in mental asylums as well. And also they're stalking with amplified audible activity at a senior citizen complex at that. You just saw them gang stalking under the fake sun at 9 o'clock in the morning the other day. All right. The entity is engaging in this P.O.C. and they are the short-sighted defendants who forget and you know why? Because they're stalking me. So they're going like a stalker does, step by step. Where I go, they go. What I do, they mirror it. But what I've been doing is leading them down a trail to an inevitable demise with regard to showing. Don't forget about what happened with regard to this environment that defies nature, and this environment that is shared in an entirely different region, i.e. Los Angeles. And you're looking at them under the environment that is for their criminal purposes. And this is putting into the proper context, everything that's happening, including in this psychopath's apartment, Tracy Banks, who was gang stalking on video for the world to understand that Satan will use your relatives, like scripture tells us. Okay, your enemies will be those of your household, paraphrasing what scripture says. That's exactly what this is. This is not only an enemy physically while she's gang stalking me, this is a mental health case who will hours from now come out and start a conversation like nothing happened. It is no less of a threat. It's actually more of a threat because this is somebody that is entirely unpredictable with her severe mental illness and is engaging in what is gang stalking under all circumstances, whether she's using her communication device or whether she is cussing me out and throwing objects and doing so with the gang stalking police department that's flying in circles over her unit, okay? As I'm speaking to a more and more chaotic method of the same exact criminal P.O.C. Okay, this is an entity that is acting through this third party who is remaining inside of this unit, and they're all being prosecuted together as the mental health cases that they are for study. For that which is no longer a means of concealing what is actual mental illness. This is directly rebutting a lot of the propaganda that is put out here to condition our mindsets, because Satan does not want you to know who he is and who he's using and how it actually affects them. It actually, demon possession actually, if the wicked, those who are in sin, in other words, by the way, but this is demon possession. This stalking with this presence in the path, this use of these meat suits that walk in front of the camera as I start recording, that's demon possession. Satan is using their bodies. Okay, so yes, they are in need of Christ. They need deliverance. This is literal demon possession. I just want to point that out. I am not being overbroad when I'm using the term demons and demonic and demon possession. I said exactly what it is. It's demon possession. This is what is animating a demon that is pacing in the unit above, in unit 55, for over 75 minutes, like I documented the other night. That's a demon going around in a circle. And so while it's on camera, that demon wants to appear, quote unquote, normal by having two bodies walk in front of me, walk beside me into unit number 41. They're pacing all the while, repeatedly crossing path. That's accomplished when you're going back and forth in front of someone, left and right in front of someone. You're doing the same thing when you have multiple bodies cross path. It's called patrolling. That's what the demons are doing, okay? And the demon that is in unit 55, that is engaged in criminal surveillance on communication devices and online pursuant to federal stalking, which is removing her from her apartment, removing her as a stalker in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, with simultaneity, not coincidentally, but deliberately and with ongoing knowledge, speaking to her mental illness, as she's also acting with a level of impunity that defies logic, because she's going to be homeless and while she's remaining in a mental asylum if she ever gets out. With simultaneity, as I reference this demon who knows exactly what I'm talking about, she begins amplified audible activity in the environment where the fake son is. Engineer light inside of this demon, Tracy Banks' apartment, her co-defendant, license 9HUZ 740, gang stalking together. Okay, while Tracy Banks is walking around inside of the apartment, it's not amplified in volume. It's not causing any potholes in the floor, and the demons that are on the second floor are not creating earthquakes. This is demon possession in operation, and the malicious and deliberate engagement in what are psychological torture tactics when you're gang stalking by residents. It's also, in other words, an obvious way to prosecute the domestic terrorists that are by residence and employment at the venue, engaging in that pattern of conduct. The simultaneity of amplified pacing, it is literally the formula to put mental health patients where they belong. And again, this is the same one, puts peroxide in her hair, Tracy Banks' co-defendant, and then this is again Tracy Banks' failure. She's walking out on camera for you to see somebody that's gang stalking, desiring to murder her own daughter. This is a psychopath, this is a predator, and this is somebody that is engaging in a pattern of targeting. I'm not the first person she's targeted. I'm the first person that's proven that she's demon possessed, that she relies on witchcraft as a way of life, that she has multiple personalities, and also that she is literally a mental health threat to the public and herself, while she's engaged in what is the established crime, what is federal group stalking monitoring, i.e. gang stalking. All right, and her co-defendant in Unit 55 is ongoing confirmation about Tracy Banks' mental state, because remember, they're co-defendants engaged in the pattern of conduct. So Tracy Banks' sick mind is illustrated while the demon above is pacing around, with simultaneity to my referencing the fact that I documented the demon above pacing nights ago. There's no coincidences under the fake sun, no coincidences in engineer light. And this is what an audacious, that's speaking to impunity, that's speaking to a psychopath. All right, that is fully capable and a threat to grabbing a weapon and harming another person. Okay, this is a threat that the federal government is permitting to persist. They're permitting it. And they're doing so with regard to knowledge of the fact that I've already prosecuted. So this is a threat that the federal, you're talking about what is no ignorance. And that's why I am very vocal from the outset. And there is by the way, no one on YouTube that's going to deter me from doing and speaking about that which Christ alone told me to speak on. And it includes when I am remaining subject to that pattern of conduct, and the ordinary targeted individual that remains subject to this sort of pattern of conduct and has no one to protect them, no one to report it to, no way to enforce their rights. Okay, so it is currently 5:51 p.m. The ongoing impunity and obsession with me is illustrated while the gang stalker in Unit 55 begins pacing. That's somebody that needs to be in a mental asylum. Her demon possession has taken her to the extent to where she has sacrificed where she's living. She's sacrificed her liberty. She is gone over and is a threat to the public and is currently a ticking time bomb. These are the same people that are on the news at some point, and they've committed some egregious harm against children. They've committed some offense on the public. They've driven their car in a dangerous manner on the freeway, killing as many people as possible, driving it off of a bridge or off of a cliff, or shooting up their workplace, shooting up the mall, just shooting indiscriminately in public. It's the demon possessed. And it's currently the demon possessed who are gang stalking me. That same psychopathic mind state is what commits those crimes. It's the entity that is acting with regard to the pattern of conduct and is indeed a threat, and is the one that's responsible for the crimes that are committed. In case you did not know that, this is 5:52 p.m. This is P.O.C. on March 23rd, 2025, and the third party that is subject to the prosecution under the fake sun remaining and physically present inside of the unit. I'm documenting Tracy Banks, license 98UC740 on a daily basis, on a ceaseless basis, while I was in Los Angeles, while I was in Orange County, while I was in Kern County, while I was working in Riverside County and she was driving me to and fro, while I am sleeping outside at the Ontario Museum of History and Arts where the fake sun was rising, which is not over anywhere, creating any light activity on Tracy Banks's patio at the same time as I'm documenting the absurdity of what these very highly unintelligent demons commit in that environment where they are stalking as a population. Tracy Banks has been documented for years, and she is the same one that has stated egregious things about my character, and this is because she literally wants to be me. Her envy of me has inspired what is demonic. The practice of witchcraft, lying on my character, that's witchcraft when you're lying about who I am as a person. This is what Satan wants to do with regard to ruining the testimony of those who follow Christ. All right, this is this witch's desire, and it has been a failure, and it's criminal with regard to what you know that she's engaging in, gang stalking, and then we're going back and we're mindful of when we're prosecuting everything that this psychopath stated about me. Okay, which she knew was false, and also everything was an admission to stalking me. All right, and that's, again, this third party, Tracy Banks, is the entity. The government's going to be prosecuted. The government is fully operating through demons and psychopaths such as Tracy Banks. It is currently 5:54 p.m. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, with regard to additional commentary, I just want to state that I do remain subject to the pattern of conduct, which is something that I will continuously vocalize is an inhumane and unconstitutional violation of my rights, which the federal government is permitting to continue. And I want to state that the entity that is gang stalking me is doing so essentially by permission, by provision of the federal government, that under no circumstances has any reasonable basis to believe anything that has come out of the mouth of the entity that is Tracy Banks and all of her co-defendants, any relatives, all those that were in my social circle, gang stalking. And doing so by gang stalking, bearing any false witness, which they were not in court stating anything true, because to state what is true about my character would contradict the criminal purpose. So they were all bearing false witness, regardless of, I don't need to know the details about what they said. Anything that was stated was in furtherance of the pattern of conduct. They were gang stalking while they bore false witness in courts, which is subjecting every single last one of them that the federal government knows about. They're all going to prison for that. Okay, but I want to be clear: the federal government is the one that's the entity that's permitting this pattern of conduct to persist. When all angles have been produced with regard to what is going on, what is it that about the evidence that I have that I already had, and I'm now putting back onto the internet. These are things that I stated about this third party Tracy Banks years ago, and the state of California years ago, even the city of Ontario years ago, i.e. what's documented online, published online on 2018, 2019 to 2020, and I'm currently in the process of uploading 2021 into 2022. All right, this is what I was stating was the case years ago, and I am subject to what is an ongoing blasphemous and defamatory campaign because the demon possessed know about the truth that I'm speaking about, their criminal engagement in what exposes the government for public corruption and what also exposes Satan. Okay, and how Satan operates. But I want to speak to some of the some of the agendas which I find relevant enough to address because none of it is going to work against me. While I remain subject to the pattern of conduct and I remain subject to spiritual attacks, it is something that my Lord and Savior, as He has already conquered on the cross. I want to state that, but it's something that I remain subject to, and it's also something that persists while terrorists like Tracy Banks and the demon-possessed remain free outside of cells, okay, outside of facilities where they are confined and where they are no longer in my vicinity, in my presence, if you will. That is relevant to what is nonetheless as the victory in Christ that I do have, and so I'm not limiting that, but I am speaking to the responsibility of the federal government, and I'm also speaking to what I am concerned about, some sort of what is also a failure means to try to control a sort of outcome, and this is what I suspect, and I'm going to continuously be vocal because it is a means what I find to be corrupt, what I find to be wicked, and what I find to be something that I will not cooperate with at all, even as I remain subject to this criminal pattern of conduct. The evidence is already complete. The evidence is sitting on the record, and this is delayed justice that the federal government is delaying. So you're talking about what is their engagement in this delay, and for whatever purposes, whatever specific actors that are thinking that they can control an outcome, control what it is that I decide to do in my life, for example, after I am delivered from this, which is deliverance that's only given from Christ. My deliverance came when the entity targeted me, and the Lord Jesus told me what is going on and to prosecute it and how to prosecute it, and literally given me divine insight about what's going on, and then how to translate that into a means whereby I can prosecute with tangible evidence, and doing so in a manner that people can understand. Okay, so I want to speak to that. This is under no circumstances any sort of desire, nor has that ever been the case, nor is any ordinary target individual that's enforcing their rights trying to apply for some position, interested in any sort of romantic encounter with anybody that had anything to do with this, or romance in any department whatsoever. There's a lot of absurdity that has been lost with regard to what is my focus, which is a prosecution. And the delay in justice is also, again, the demon-possessed, these workers of witchcraft are focused on things that I am not focused on. I am not interested in and nor concerned with anything but prosecuting the state of California and exposing Satan and his minions. And a part of the problem is what I find to be some sort of backhanded way of controlling an outcome with regard to what it is that I choose to do in my personal life as I get justice. And it will remain the same. And I would never be strong-armed into having any personal involvement with someone that sat back and delayed justice for me, sat back and watched any person suffer, let alone watched me suffer while you're sitting back and calling yourself some sort of arbiter of justice in one way or another. I find that to be very sick and disturbing. The entity is engaged in what is an ongoing violation of my privacy, even while the feds are watching the state gang stalk me. They are all aware of when my panties are down in the bathroom. It is equally an egregious violation that I never should have been subject to in the first place. And there is no interest in any opportunity, and no one is strong arming me by delaying and just withholding and thinking. In other words, what is so sick and satanic about it is that if I suffer long enough, perhaps,
whoever this is for, that I'm going to change my mind about having some sort of personal relationship, and I will not. And that's why I'm openly stating it. I will not, and I absolutely will not, with anybody that serves Satan in that way, because you are prolonging Satan's agenda. You are serving Satan in doing so. You're not hurt. My position remains the same. The prosecution of the state of California has been a prolonged process, and that's based on the nature of the evidence. Okay, so the wealth of evidence is something that's going to require an amount of time, but at this point, you're talking about what is now a surefire prosecution, and what is already known with regard to the level of corruption, and the entity that is sitting back and now watching, that is somebody, not just somebody, this is an entity that is under no circumstances going to control an outcome. I am entitled to justice, and that is all that I am seeking. I am under no circumstances interested or interviewing for, while I am being subject to this pattern of conduct, and maintain a constitutional right to go live my life however I want to, wherever I want to, and that's exactly what I'm going to do with regard to, guidance by my Lord and Savior. That's the only person that leads and runs my life. And there is no delay in justice, and there is no entity that is sitting back and watching this pattern of conduct continue that is going to control or change that outcome. And so, in other words, I'm not going to be controlled under any circumstances, which is what is going on now, and it's not accomplishing what the entity is desperately seeking. And that is even while permitting this psychopath Tracy Banks to continuously gang stalk, even where she's living, and letting the lies exist for one day longer. Okay. And it is important for me to be vocal about that, because like I said, I am totally unbiased with regard to justice and with regard to the truth. And also, you have a lot of interested parties that are overly interested in my life, overly interested in that which belongs to me, overly interested in that which has no concern for them. My future, where it is that I live, what it is that I do, professionally speaking, if anything at all, whatever it is that I decide to do, it will not be controlled even through what I am speaking to, and what I'm making sure that I'm deliberately noting. The entity is deliberately hanging back and delaying justice and permitting this to occur. And it is an injustice for any American citizen to be subject to that. And I find it to be something that is in conformity to the P.O.C. It is also something that is not going to change my stance. So I don't respond well to a test this is not any sort of test that I'm going to sit down and take. I'm not taking any more California bars. I've taken all the exams that I'm going to take. I'm done with my education. I am prosecuting the state of California. That was the ultimate test. And the only one that is entitled to test me is my Lord and Savior himself. And I'm doing what he called me to do. Now, the government that is sitting back and delaying justice is not going to control me in any way with regard to changing what it is that I maintain a constitutional right to do. And that is not have anything to do with anyone that was remotely involved in this. I'm not taking on any quote unquote opportunity. I don't look at it as an opportunity where you're both sitting back watching this pattern of conduct as I remain subject to it, and then want to then come in and be looked at as some sort of hero. I'm hoping that you're going to change my mind. That's a psychopath. That's a sick person. That's somebody with the characteristics seeking to, in some sort of toxic manner, control another person's free will. And I am not any sort of puppet. I can't be. I'm going to put that out there right now. I'm not going to be controlled, and you will watch this happen when when I am given justice and I am walking in the freedom that I maintain right now. Okay, so I do want to speak to what is a disappointment with regard to the federal government's disdain for providing justice to an American citizen that is entitled to it. I just want to be clear. But for my prosecution and my own investigation, the federal government would not even be in a position or poised to provide any sort of justice whatsoever. And I want to make sure that that is also clear. So sitting back and permitting any state government to continue for 1 hour, for an additional 1 minute, in interest of things that I never interviewed for, that I am not interested in, and things that I'm not even going to do in the first place, in trying to control me in matters that you're not going to be successful in, for whoever this is for.
Okay, I just want to make that abundantly clear. It is currently 6:05 p.m. where I do remain subject to the pattern of conduct, and that is based on the federal government's disdain for interfering with the state's ability to further continue this criminal system, where I'm surrounded by psychopaths who are ceaselessly communicating a threat while they are gang stalking and engaging in what is the ongoing system with impunity. That's what I'm documenting. It is currently 6:06 p.m. on Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. This is P.O.C. This is P.O.C.